Chapter 561, Hell on Earth. At the same time, Duan Lingtian opened the room door and looked at the old man outside with an excited expression. It seems to be Phoenix Wing Herb, said Luo Rong. Phoenix Wing Herb? Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up abruptly, and he asked with an anxious tone. Where's the Phoenix Wing Herb now? Luo Rong said, it's the Imperial City's Sima clan's second elder that personally came over to tell me of it. He said he'd seen the Phoenix Wing Herb in the Blackwind Ridge. Presently, he has already rushed to Blackwind Ridge, and he'd bring news back by tomorrow. Duan Lingtian nodded when he heard Luo Rong. Master, besides telling you of this matter, I came to look for you because I want to ask you to guide me slightly. When Luo Rong spoke up to hear, he looked at Duan Lingtian with an expression of anticipation. What? Duan Lingtian was confused. The Sima clan's second elder is skilled in using whips. I've never refined a whip in the past, and I don't know how to do it. Luo Rong was slightly embarrassed. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. It's only a small matter. Under Duan Lingtian's guidance, Luo Rong quickly completed the refinement of the first whip-type spirit weapon in his entire lifetime, and it was able to provide an amplification of 49%. When he found out that there was news about the Phoenix Wing Herb, Duan Lingtian was rather excited and he didn't continue cultivating. Instead, he went around the Imperial City with Su Li. Another day passed. Duan Lingtian attained his wish of obtaining the Phoenix Wing Herb. The Phoenix Wind Herb was completely jade green, and the corners of its leaves were extremely alike to the wings of the divine beast, Phoenix. According to the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Lingtian could confirm that this was a Phoenix Wing Herb indeed. Now that I've obtained the Phoenix Wing Herb, only the ageless root remains. As for the other medicinal materials, I'll be able to easily gather them. Duan Lingtian was slightly excited in his heart. So long as he found that ageless root, he would be able to refine the rebirth pill, and the rebirth pill would be a turning point for him. Once I consume the rebirth pill, my cultivation might be able to surpass Su Li in one go. Duan Lingtian was full of confidence towards the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill. After all, even the rebirth martial emperor of all those years ago, whose cultivation had stepped into the martial emperor stage, had broken through 3 levels after he completely absorbed the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill. Of course, the absorption of the rebirth pill's medicinal strength required a process. All those years ago, the rebirth martial emperor had spent many years to completely absorb the rebirth pill's medicinal strength. With my current cultivation, completely absorbing the rebirth pill's medicinal strength would probably require over 10 years, or even longer, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. But no matter what, the rebirth pill was an unexpected delightful thing. It was sufficient to assist him to advance by leaps and bounds with a single boost. Ageless root, once I arrive at the Darkstone Empire, I must find a way to acquire the ageless root. Duan Lingtian's gaze was exceedingly firm. After he obtained the Phoenix Wing Herb, Duan Lingtian exerted himself even more when he cultivated. Another day passed. Dawn. Duan Lingtian, Luo Zan, and Su Li left the Weapons Craftsman Guild together. As for Chen Xiaoshuai, he'd run off to the Spring Night House during these few days. According to what he said, they were about to leave and he wanted to properly enjoy himself for a few days. The 3 of them sat within a carriage and headed towards the Imperial Palace. Duan Lingtian's group of 3 were just intending to walk into the Imperial Palace when they heard a familiar voice sound out from behind. Duan Lingtian was the first to turn around, and the person that had come was precisely Chen Xiaoshuai. Aren't you afraid of emptying out your entire body's strength? Luo Zan shook his head and smiled. Don't worry, my body is extremely well. Chen Xiaoshuai spoke complacently. Let's go. Duan Lingtian called out to Chen Xiaoshuai before the 4 of them walked together into the Imperial Palace. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian's group of 4 gathered with Long Yun under the lead of the Imperial Palace's guards. When facing Duan Lingtian's group of 4, Long Yun revealed strong hostility towards Duan Lingtian and Su Li. Duan Lingtian and Su Li could be said to be his lifelong enemies. Duan Lingtian had defeated him twice and caused him to be extremely humiliated. Su was the person his master wanted him to defeat and was the motivation for him to ceaselessly improve. In this lifetime of his, he was bound to make great efforts to improve while making surpassing these 2 people his objective. Duan Lingtian, Su Li, the day will come when I'll trample on the both of you beneath my feet. Long Yun silently vowed in his heart. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed Long Yun's hostility, but he didn't pay any attention to it. He's utterly not taken Long Yun seriously, not in the past, and not now. As for Su Li, he glanced coldly and indifferently at Long Yun before withdrawing his gaze, and then he closed his eyes to rest. Whoosh, whoosh, 2 figures, one after the other, appeared before Duan Lingtian's group of 5. One was an old man, the other a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. Vice Dean Kai. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and nodded towards the old man. The old man was precisely the vice dean of the former Dragon and Phoenix Academy, Kai Ming. As for the middle-aged man in luxurious clothes, Duan Lingtian paid no attention to him. Vice Dean Kai, Prince Shang. But, Duan Lingtian paying no attention to him didn't mean that the others would pay no attention to him. The middle-aged man in luxurious clothes was precisely Prince Shang. When he saw Duan Lingtian disregard him, Prince Shang's face slightly sank, and icy coldness was emitted from his eyes. After a short moment, the coldness dispersed, and Prince Shang's expression returned to calm. This Prince Shang isn't simple. Duan Lingtian noticed the changes in Prince Shang's expression, and his heart jerked as he couldn't help but arouse slight vigilance in his heart. Very good, everyone is here. After Kai Ming nodded to Duan Lingtian, he glanced indifferently at the others. This trip to the Darkstone Empire will be led by me and Prince Shang, let's go. As soon as Kai Ming finished speaking, he soared up into the sky. Duan Lingtian's group of 5 followed up to him. The 7 figures transformed into 7 flowing lights in the blink of an eye, and they left the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial Palace. They headed all the way north, and that was precisely the direction towards the Darkstone Empire. At this time, the experts of the Azure Forest Trisect ought to have already departed. Prince Shang's eyes squinted as he thought to himself. This time, he pleaded on his behalf to the Emperor to head to the Darkstone Empire with Kai Ming and the others, whereas the reason he took this arduous errand was naturally not so simple. He did all this only for the sake of Duan Lingtian's life. He couldn't eat and sleep in peace until Duan Lingtian died. He'd already come to an agreement with the 3 great sect leaders of the Azure Forest Trisect that he would join forces with the experts the Azure Forest Trisect sent over to obliterate Duan Lingtian. Time slowly passed by. Half a month later, when he saw the border between the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and the Darkstone Empire close before his eyes, Prince Shang's face sank. Why haven't those Azure Forest Trisect members arrived? Presently, the time he'd agreed upon with the 3 great sect leaders of the Azure Forest Trisect had passed long ago, but the experts of the Azure Forest Trisect still hadn't arrived. Prince Shang realized that he might have been stood up by the 3 great sect leaders of the Azure Forest Trisect. Darkstone Empire. As he looked at the territory ahead that belonged to the Darkstone Empire, Duan Lingtian's eyes revealed slight reminiscence. He'd once come to the Darkstone Empire a few years ago, and he'd even stayed in the Darkstone Empire for a period of time. Azure Forest Trisect's branch sect. The location of the former demonic Lotus Blade sect. Today, the demonic Lotus Gorge was in complete chaos as blood flowed into rivers. That demon beast has come again. Suddenly, an Azure Forest Trisect disciple raised his head to look into the sky, and he shouted out in terror. Right at the moment, the black dot high above in the sky became bigger and bigger. In the end, it transformed into a rock. The rock had an enormous body, and when it spread out its wings, they were like clouds that covered the sky. Its eyes emitted a frightful sheen and didn't contain the slightest emotion. Whoosh! The rock transformed into a bolt of lightning that plunged down to descend within the gorge, and everywhere it passed, shrill cries rose and fell. Blood sprayed into the sky and gushed out to taint the entire ground. Flee, flee, don't kill me, don't kill me. No, no. Waves of grieved and miserably shrill cries sounded out without end. For a time, the entire gorge seemed to have transformed into a hell on earth. The rock dived down as it moved, and its sharp claws were covered in fresh blood, but its eyes reveal frightful cold lights that caused a chill to run down one's spine. Sinful animal, don't think of fleeing. Suddenly, a grim shout sounded out from high above in the sky as numerous figures tore through the sky and chased after the rock that was slaughtering within the gorge. When they looked at the corpses that covered the ground of the gorge, the figures all had extremely unsightly expressions. When the rock saw the arrival of these people, it lightly turned around to glance at these people in disdain. Whoosh! Subsequently, the rock shot into the sky, then it flapped its wing before vanishing in the horizon in the blink of an eye, and it caused the people chasing behind to be so far behind they were unable to catch up. Damn it, this rock is even more terrifying than the 7-star sword sect's Chen Zan. The sect leader of the former Origin Convergence sect, Lu Yuan, looked at the direction the rock left with an extremely unsightly expression. He didn't chase the rock because he knew he was unable to chase up to it. The rock was the sect-guarding demon beast of the former 7-star sword sect, and in terms of speed, there were very few people who could compare to it. This rock relies on its 6th level wind concept coupled with its rock kind being adept in speed. A 6th level void initiation stage martial artist had to have comprehended 7th level wind concept or the 8th level of any other concept of nature to catch up to it. The sect leader of the former demonic Lotus Blade sect had eyes that were filled with icy coldness. No one in our Azure Forest Tri-sect has a speed that's able to chase up to this rock. If this continues, then the disciples of our Azure Forest Tri-sect would sooner or later be completely slaughtered by him. The sect leader of the former Snow Moon sect, Shui Rui, had an extremely gloomy expression. The only thing we can do now is protect our sect's disciples properly. We can't go chase after it again. Otherwise, if it turns around again, the blood of our Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples will flow into rivers once again. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered with cold lights. Although he was aggrieved in his heart, he had no way to solve it. HMPH. If someone in our Azure Forest Tri-sect is able to advance into the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage, then why would we need to be afraid of this rock? When we annihilated the 7-star sword sect on that day, we ought to have killed this rock at the first possible moment. In that way, we wouldn't have fallen to such a passive situation like we're in now. The expressions of the other guardian elders of the Azure Forest Tri-sect were extremely unsightly as well. I remember now. Suddenly, a shocked shout sounded out from within the gorge. An Azure Forest Tri-sect disciple's eyes revealed an expression of terror as he roared with a ghastly pale face. I've seen that rock before. It's the sect-guarding demon beast of the 7-star sword sect. 561 Chapter 562, Imperial City of the Empire. What? The words of this disciple caused the other disciples of the Azure Forest Tri-sect to go pale. The sect-guarding demon beast of the 7-star sword sect. Are you sure? Many Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples looked towards the person that shouted out in shock. Of course, I was there on that day when the 7-star sword sect was annihilated by our Azure Forest Tri-sect. I'm absolutely not wrong. The latter hurriedly nodded as his eyes emitted slight terror. I still remember that Duan Lingtian was saved by it that day. Its speed is something practically no one in our Azure Forest Tri-sect is able to compare to. Earlier, the 3 great sect leaders and the few guardian elders went to chase it, yet they didn't even touch a feather on its back. Not only that, they even allowed it to kill so many of our fellow disciples. The bodies of some of the Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples started to tremble lightly. I want to leave the sect. I don't want to be an Azure Forest Tri-sect disciple anymore. I want to leave the sect as well. Instantly, the group of Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples within the gorge were stirred, and all of them wanted to leave the Azure Forest Tri-sect. As far as they were concerned, so long as they clearly cast aside their relationship with the Azure Forest Tri-sect, they wouldn't have to worry about that rock coming to slaughter them anymore. The speed of that rock was something no one in the Azure Forest Tri-sect could compare to. In other words, if the rock wanted to kill them, it would simply be as if it was walking into an unguarded place. The commotion within the gorge caused the expression of the 3 great sect leaders to become grim. They never expected that the surviving rock of the 7-star sword sect would actually cause such great panic amongst their Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples. In next to no time, the 3 of them descended from the sky and went to reassure the disciples. They could imagine that if they did nothing, it wouldn't be long before only they and the group of elders would remain in the Azure Forest Tri-sect. Although their strengths were ordinary, these Azure Forest Tri-sect disciples were the foundation and hope of the Azure Forest Tri-sect. The future of the Azure Forest Tri-sect relied on these disciples. If these disciples left completely, then the Azure Forest Tri-sect would surely cease to exist in the next 100 years. Because of the sudden attack of the rock, the 3 great sect leaders of the Azure Forest Tri-sect had completely tossed the agreement between them and Prince Sheng to the back of their minds. Right now, their homes were burning, and they were busy putting out the fire. How could they possibly have the mind to care about anything else? Darkstone Empire. Duan Lingtian's group flashed past in the sky above Phoenix Nest City. Not long after, they arrived nearby the inscription formation that enveloped the former Soul Clean School. Zhao Ming. When Duan Lingtian thought of the 2 old men that were trapped within the inscription formation, his face couldn't help but sink, and his eyes revealed icy cold killing intent. So long as he possessed sufficient strength, he would surely enter the inscription formation once again and cruelly kill Zhao Ming. In the past, he didn't know Zhao Ming's actions when the Seven-Star Sword sect was annihilated. So he didn't utterly detest Zhao Ming so much. But now, when he found out that Zhao Ming was the culprit of the deaths of Elder Zan and the sect leader, Linggu Jinhong, Duan Lingtian wished for nothing more than to tear Zhao Ming into pieces. Those Azure Forest Tri-sect members actually dared deceive me. Prince Sheng, who wore luxurious clothes, had a livid expression. He finally realized that it was impossible that the members of the Azure Forest Tri-sect were coming. Amongst Duan Lingtian's group, the strengths of the 5 young men were only ordinary, but Kai Ming and Prince Sheng were both existences at the Void initiation stage. Especially Kai Ming, his cultivation was at the 6th level of the Void initiation stage, and he even had a grade 4 spirit weapon to rely on. So it was extremely peaceful all along the way. For a martial artist at the Void initiation stage, heading to the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City couldn't be considered to be far. However, Kai Ming and Prince Sheng had to take care of the few young men. So their group only arrived nearby the Darkstone Empire's Imperial Kingdom after 3 months of time. The Darkstone Empire's Imperial City is up ahead. Kai Ming was the first to descend from the sky, and he looked down at a little black slot far in the distance. Along with Duan Lingtian's group moving forward, the little black spot became larger and larger. In the end, it transformed into a vast city. This city was ancient and emitted a unique aura. It was like a demon beast that lay dormant there, and it ceaselessly swallowed the streams of carriages into its stomach. The Darkstone Empire's Imperial City. Duan Lingtian's eyes flickered with a flowing light as he looked at the city before him. He knew that this place was the place he would be staying at next. 9 months later, the Young Genius competition of the Darkstone Empire would begin. At that time, the people that were outstanding during the Young Genius competition would obtain the qualification to head towards the Darken Dynasty to compete with the young geniuses of the dynasty and the various empires. In the Darken Dynasty, the selection for the people who would participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties would be decided, and then they would directly participate in the martial competition. Supposedly, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was held by the formidable powers of the foreign lands. Those people that were outstanding in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties would presumably acquire the favor of those formidable powers. That power will be my current objective. I'll rely on it as my jumping board to enter the foreign lands, and then I'll wait for an opportunity to withdraw the great store of treasures the rebirth martial emperor left behind during his second lifetime. Duan Lingtian made a plan for his future. Before this, I must become eminent in the Darken Dynasty, and seize the qualification to participate in the martial competition, otherwise, everything would be in vain no matter how much I think about it. This was something that Duan Lingtian was extremely clear of. Descend. Along with Kai Ming leading in descend, Duan Lingtian and the others followed down as well, and they walked into the Imperial City together with large strides. After Duan Lingtian's group entered the Imperial City and had a meal, Kai Ming went to buy a spacious courtyard. There's still 9 months of time to the Darkstone Empire's Young Genius competition. All of you will stay at the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City during this period of time and cultivate properly, and strive to break through, said Kai Ming to Duan Lingtian and the other 4. Duan Lingtian and the others nodded in agreement. Duan Lingtian, perhaps I'll break through to the 5th level of the Void Prying stage before you. Chen Xiaoshuai looked at Duan Lingtian and smiled. We'll see. Duan Lingtian smiled as well. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian returned to the room Kai Ming allocated to him. Duan Lingtian's room was in between 2 rooms. One of them was Su Li's room. The other was Kai Ming's. Vice Dean Kai is really thoughtful. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, and his face held a slightly moved expression. He was able to discern that Kai Ming had surely intentionally allocated it like this. Presumably, Kai Ming had discerned Prince Sheng's hostility towards him since long ago. Squeak squeak, suddenly, the little gold mouse on Duan Lingtian's shoulder awoke, and then she opened her pair of jade green eyes before sizing up the room before her. Big brother Lingtian, where are we? You little fellow, we've already arrived at the Imperial City of Darkstone Empire, Duan Lingtian said with a smile. Big brother Lingtian, I haven't eaten for so long. The little gold mouse looked at Duan Lingtian with a pitiable expression. I didn't see you waking up when we were eating earlier, now you're hungry. Duan Lingtian shook his head as he walked out of the door, and then he notified Kai Ming before leaving the courtyard. Duan Lingtian found a nearby restaurant and ordered a table of roast meat for the little gold mouse. At the courtyard, a figure was just intending to leave. Prince Shang, an aged figure, followed closely behind the first figure like a shadow. Revered Elder Kai, Prince Shang frowned when he saw the old man, and his expression was unsightly. He knew that the old man had perceived his intentions. He was bound to be unable to follow Duan Lingtian and secretly deal with him. Duan Lingtian naturally didn't know all this. After the little gold mouse was fully fed, he brought the little gold mouse to go around the nearby area before returning to the courtyard. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Form. Duan Lingtian sat cross-legged on the bed as he cultivated silently. 1 month later. Duan Lingtian, why are you suddenly interested in the auction held by the Darkstone Empire's imperial family? On the way, Su Li asked Duan Lingtian, who was beside him. Su Li, don't you feel that always staying in the courtyard and cultivating is too boring? Supposedly, the auction held by the Darkstone Empire's imperial family is held every year, and there are many treasures every time. Duan Lingtian said with a smile, perhaps you'll be able to obtain something you require. Su Li nodded and his eyes contained slight anticipation. On the other side, Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai similarly had slight anticipation. The auction house of the Darkstone Empire's imperial family was resplendent and magnificent, and it caused Duan Lingtian's group of 4 who had walked in to be unable to refrain from feeling shocked in their hearts. A room actually requires 100,000 gold, that Darkstone Empire's imperial family is simply robbing people. Chen Xiaoshuai couldn't help but shake his head in the room. Luo Zan said with a smile, your heart is probably aching that if all this money was given to you to go to the Spring Night House, you would be able to use it for an extremely long period of time, right? Chen Xiaoshuai was slightly embarrassed when he was seen through. Duan Lingtian sat at this side and silently savored the fragrant tea on the table, and his gaze passed through the wind to look towards the auction hall. Presently, the people in the auction hall grew more and more numerous. It wasn't long before the auction started. At the beginning, practically all the things auctions were spirit weapons and medicinal pills, and Duan Lingtian didn't take a fancy to any of them. Duan Lingtian only started bidding later on when the auction house brought out some rare materials. Before the auction ended, Duan Lingtian had bid for many materials. So long as he took a fancy to them, he would practically directly bid and take them. Unknowingly, the gold in Duan Lingtian's possession had reduced by an entire 100 million, and this caused Su Li and the others to be unable to help but be amazed. Duan Lingtian, I originally thought that the person amongst us with the most money in his possession would be Luo Zan. I never imagined that you'd concealed such wealth so deeply. Chen Xiaoshuai looked at Duan Lingtian and said with a smile, looks like if I don't have money in the future, I'm completely able to directly borrow money from you. You can, but you have to pay interest. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. Chen Xiaoshuai rolled his eyes angrily at Duan Lingtian. Although he was surprised, Su Li didn't say anything. In the past, Duan Lingtian had surprised people many times and he'd long since become accustomed to it. As far as he was concerned, if anything shocking occurred around Duan Lingtian, then it was extremely normal. As for Luo Zan, after he was surprised, he felt it was logical and natural. Only he knew Duan Lingtian's secret. He knew that Duan Lingtian was a grade 4 weapons craftsman. Would a grade 4 weapons craftsman lack money? The answer was no. Luo Zan believed that so long as Duan Lingtian was willing to refine a grade 4 spirit weapon and put it up for auction in the auction house of the Darkstone Empire's imperial family, it would absolutely be able to be auctioned off for an astronomical figure. A grade 4 spirit weapon was something that was usually only able to be refined by the weapons craftsmen within the dynasties, and when placed in the Darkstone Empire, it was sufficient to cause a great stir. 562 Chapter 563, Dead Egg. To a certain extent, a grade 4 spirit weapon was already not something that could be measured with money. If it really were to be exchanged for money, it would surely be a figure so enormous that one would be unable to imagine it. So, as far as Luo Zan was concerned, Duan Lingtian didn't lack money. How would Luo Zan know that practically none of the wealth in Duan Lingtian's possession was obtained by exchanging spirit weapons? He'd earned all this wealth with various methods. The items auctioned off by the Darkstone Empire's imperial families are truly disappointing. Duan Lingtian looked out the window, at the middle-aged man that stood there and presided over the auction, and he shook his head. Of course, the reason Duan Lingtian thought in this way was entirely because he took no fancy to most of the rare items in the auction. For example, the grade 5 spirit weapons, the bottle of void strengthening pills with 80% purity, and the various miscellaneous things. To others, those things were treasures, but to Duan Lingtian, they weren't worth mentioning. So long as he was willing, he would be able to refine a better grade 5 spirit weapon or voice strengthening pills with even higher purity. As for the other things, he had no need for them. When one stood at a different position, one's mentality would naturally be different. Everyone, the next thing to be auctioned off is the last item for the auction of our imperial family's auction house this time. This is a demon beast egg, and it contains a trace of the aura of advanced lightning force. The middle-aged man that presided over the auction spoke out in introduction. Presently, there was a tray in the hands of the middle-aged man. An egg the size of an infant's fist was placed upright on the tray. There was vaguely a faint violet-colored energy flickering on the surface layer of the egg. In other words, the demon beast that laid this egg is most probably an existence that has comprehended advanced lightning force. The middle-aged man continued. Advanced lightning force. Early on, when the middle-aged man mentioned the words advanced lightning force, most of the people in the auction hall couldn't help but become excited, and when they finished hearing the words of the middle-aged man, the gazes of many of them lit up. A demon beast egg laid by a demon beast that has comprehended advanced lightning force, I'm determined to obtain it. Right at this moment, a resolute and determined voice sounded out from a room in the higher floor. HMPH. That would depend on if you have the wealth. A voice of disdain sounded out from another room. Since this demon beast egg carries along advanced lightning force, then in other words, it's very likely that the demon beast within the demon beast egg will grow to comprehend advanced lightning force. A voice sounded out from another room, and the voice contained slight excitement mixed within. Duan Lingtian noticed that the guests within the numerous rooms spoke out, and they were determined to obtain this demon beast egg. What demon beast egg is that? Duan Lingtian looked at the demon beast egg, and there was slight curiosity mixed within his gaze. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force swept out as he wanted to determine what exactly it was. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian noticed another spiritual force was also investigating the demon beast egg. The strength of this spiritual force was on par with him. It was a 6th level void crying stage spiritual force as well. There's another inscription master here. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. He was only able to notice this spiritual force, yet he had no way of knowing where it came from. I wonder if this spiritual force is from the rooms or from someone in the hall. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. But when he saw the spiritual force had no intention of making things difficult for him, Duan Lingtian paid no attention to it. Even if that spiritual force wanted to make things difficult for him, he wasn't afraid. His spiritual force wasn't inferior to the other person. When Duan Lingtian's spiritual force touched the demon beast egg, his eyes couldn't help but squint. It was because he noticed that the vitality within the demon beast egg was swiftly flowing out, and only a trace remained now. In this instant of time, that trace of vitality had vanished completely as well. The advanced lightning force that flickered atop the demon beast egg completely disappeared, causing the egg to become simple and ordinary. What's going on? This scene caused many guests that were present to be unable to help but be stunned. There were also some people with discerning gazes that cried out in surprise. This demon beast egg doesn't have any vitality already, it's already a dead egg. Dead egg. It was like a single stone that raised 1,000 ripples. A living demon beast egg had suddenly become a dead egg, and it caused everyone to be dumbstruck. It's really dead. It seems to have lost all vitality. So long as there was a trace of vitality, a demon beast egg's outer surface would have a trace of force. Exactly. If the force suddenly disappears, then there's only one possibility: the demon beast has died. A demon beast egg that was priceless is now not worth a hair. Such a pity. The auction hall was in a complete uproar. Duan Lingtian, the demon beast within that demon beast egg is really dead? Luo Zan asked Duan Lingtian curiously. He had blind confidence towards Duan Lingtian. Subconsciously, he felt that Duan Lingtian was capable of anything. Yes, it just died. Duan Lingtian nodded. Just died. Su Li and Chen Xiaoshuai couldn't help but be stunned when they heard this. Fortunately, it's dead now. Otherwise, if it died after someone bid and won it, then the person who bought it would have really been cheated. Chen Xiaoshuai sighed with emotion. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man on the auction platform became gloomy. After a short moment, 2 old men walked up from behind the platform. After they checked the demon beast egg, both of them couldn't help but shake their heads. The final auction of the imperial family's auction house is a dead egg. This matter would surely become the joke of the imperial family's auction house. A demon beast egg that was priceless has now become a useless thing. It's truly a pity. Many people shook their heads and sighed within the auction hall, whereas the voices that sounded out from the various rooms had gone silent and didn't sound out again. Guests. The middle-aged man on the auction platform took a deep breath and said apologetically, "A slight accident has occurred on the last auction item for today. We never expected that the demon beast within it would be so weak. However, we've still decided to auction off this demon beast egg. This demon beast egg's original starting bid price was 10 million gold. Now, the starting bid will be 1 million gold. 1 million gold. The middle-aged man's words caused everyone in the auction hall to be unable to refrain from showing expressions of disdain. A dead egg, an egg of no use at all, was 1 million gold. Only an idiot would buy it. If this demon beast egg wasn't dead, it would perhaps be able to sell for an astronomical figure. But the demon beast within it was dead now, and this demon beast egg was bound to become a useless thing. One would complain that holding on to it was cumbersome. So, would one spend 1 million gold to buy it? Presently, even Duan Lingtian who sat within the room couldn't help but shake his head. He felt the imperial family's auction house wanted to earn money to the point they'd gone crazy. 1 million gold for a dead egg? Luo Zan shook his head. Right when Su Li and Chen Xiaoshui felt that it was extremely unlikely that someone would bid. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse that stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder suddenly cried out. Big brother Lingtian. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian heard the little gold mouse's voice. What is it? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Big brother Lingtian, I want that demon beast egg. The little gold mouse's gaze shot out of the window onto the hand of the middle-aged man on the auction platform. It was exactly that the demon beast egg that had already completely lost all signs of life in the hand of the middle-aged man. Little gold, the demon beast within that demon beast egg is already dead. Duan Lingtian feared that the little gold mouse didn't know of this fact. I know. The little gold mouse nodded like a human, then continued saying via voice transmission. Big brother Lingtian, I want it. Duan Lingtian noticed that the little gold mouse sprang her jade green eyes wide open as she stared at him. The little gold mouse's gaze was filled with anticipation. All right, I'll buy it for you. Duan Lingtian rubbed the little gold mouse's small head and had a doting expression. It was only 1 million gold. He would buy this demon beast egg and take it as buying a toy for the little fellow. 1 million gold. Instantly, Duan Lingtian directly spoke out under the gazes of disbelief from Luo Zan and the others. Duan Lingtian's voice sounded out within the auction hall, and it caused everyone in the hall to be dumbstruck. After a short while, they recovered from their shock. There's really someone that's willing to spend 1 million gold to buy a demon beast egg that has lost all signs of life. Truly a rich idiot. The world of the rich isn't something we can imagine. The crowd of people whispered in discussion, and even more people couldn't help but shoot their gazes at the room Duan Lingtian was in. But unfortunately, due to the problem of their angle, they weren't able to see anything. Is there any other guest that wants to bid? Right at this moment, the middle-aged man on the auction platform heaved a sigh of relief, and he asked in a loud voice. Someone spending 1 million gold to buy this demon beast egg that had lost all signs of life had exceeded his expectations as well. Now, he didn't think that anyone would continue bidding. He was only asking perfunctorily. If there's no guest bidding, then I'll start the count. 1 million gold going once, 1 million gold going twice, 1 million gold going thrice. Sold. The middle-aged man spoke word by word. Congratulations guest in room number 7 for acquiring this demon beast egg for 1 million gold. The middle-aged man looked at the room Duan Lingtian was in and spoke with a loud voice. When they saw the demon beast egg that had lost all signs of life had an owner, a wave of discussion once again arose in the auction hall. A demon beast egg that has lost all signs of life is utterly useless. I wonder who actually spent 1 million gold to buy a useless thing like this. Exactly, this demon beast egg is probably no different to an ordinary chicken egg now. There's still a difference from a chicken egg. At least, I still dare to eat a chicken egg, but if this demon beast egg entered into my possession, I'd surely throw it away directly. No matter how the people outside discussed it, Duan Lingtian had bid and acquired that demon beast egg. Duan Lingtian, you, Luo Zan looked at Duan Lingtian, and they all had puzzled expressions. As far as they were concerned, Duan Lingtian was absolutely not a rich idiot. Duan Lingtian didn't say anything but instead looked at the little gold mouse on his shoulder and thought to himself. What does little gold want that demon beast egg for? Knock, knock. Right at this moment, the sound of the door being knocked sounded out. A member of the auction house had sent over the demon beast egg, whereas, Duan Lingtian passed over the 1 million gold as well. 563 Chapter 564, Demon. Squeak squeak. Duan Lingtian had only just acquired the demon beast egg when the little gold mouse let out a sharp cry as she pounced over, and she swiftly seized away the demon beast egg like a thunderbolt. You little fellow, are you afraid I wouldn't give it to you? Duan Lingtian spoke angrily as he looked at the little gold mouse that embraced the demon beast egg as if she'd obtained a precious treasure. Meanwhile, Luo Zan, Su Li, and Chen Xiaoshuai's gazes were slightly dazed as they shot at the little gold mouse. They were extremely curious why the demon beast by Duan Lingtian's side wanted this demon beast egg that had lost all signs of life. Not only were they curious, even Duan Lingtian was similarly curious. He'd bid for this demon beast egg because the little gold mouse wanted it. As for what the little gold mouse wanted to do with it, that was something he had completely zero knowledge about. After the worker from the auction house received the money and left while closing the door on his way out, Duan Lingtian's group of four saw to their shock. Whoosh! The little gold mouse's figure slightly enlarged, and at the same time, she grabbed onto the demon beast egg with her hand before directly shoving it into her mouth. The demon beast egg was just able to be swallowed by her. Gulp! At the instant that the little gold mouse swallowed the demon beast egg, Duan Lingtian's group of four couldn't refrain from fiercely gulping down a mouthful of saliva. The questioning gazes of Luo Zan's group of three had descended onto Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly as he spread out his hands, and his expression was as if he didn't know anything beforehand. Little gold, you, right when Duan Lingtian was prepared to ask the little gold mouse why she swallowed the demon beast egg. Duan Lingtian saw the little gold mouse had shrunk down once again, and her fluffy and chubby figure fell down before falling asleep on the table. This state she was in was exactly similar to her state after consuming the nether soul fruit. Could it be that little gold has eaten that demon beast egg like a spirit fruit? Duan Lingtian had a strange expression. Duan Lingtian, this jade-eyed heavenly mouse by your side is truly bizarre. Luo Zan shook his head as he sighed with emotion. Jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Chen Xiaoshuai's eyes lit up. What a domineering name. Duan Lingtian, where did you find this little fellow? If I have the chance, I want to get one and raise it as well. I encountered her in an auction house all those years ago. Now that I speak about it, I even spent a few million gold on her. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall the scene of him bidding for the little gold mouse in the Blackwind City Ma Clan auction house. Only a few million gold. Luo Zan had an expression of jealousy and envy. Duan Lingtian, your luck is really heaven-defying. He knew clearly of how terrifying the little gold mouse by Duan Lingtian's side was. Although Chen Xiaoshuai didn't say anything, he looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze of envy. Jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Su Li pondered for a short while before his gaze abruptly lit up, and then he looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, this little gold mouse by your side is a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Are you sure? At this instant, Su Li's breathing had become heavy. Su Li, you know of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse. It was the first time that Luo Zan had seen Su Li lose his composure like this, and he asked curiously. Chen Xiaoshuai looked over as well. Su Li muttered, if this little gold mouse is really a jade-eyed heavenly mouse, then Duan Lingtian has really made a fortune, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse for a few million gold. Su Li, since you know of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse, then tell us about it. Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai both had curious expressions. Su Li's loss of composure allowed them to realize that the little gold mouse by Duan Lingtian's side was extremely extraordinary. Su Li glanced at Duan Lingtian as if he was confirming something. Duan Lingtian nodded. Only now did Su Li look at the little gold mouse that lay on the table and had fallen asleep as he said, I once saw records related to the jade-eyed heavenly mouse in some ancient books. The jade-eyed heavenly mouse is a type of extremely formidable demon beast. When it matured, it's even able to transform into a demon and take human form. When he spoke up to hear, Su Li's voice was slightly trembling. Demon. Su Li's words caused the pupils of Chen Xiaoshuai and Luo Zan to constrict. As long as it was able to be called a demon, then it was at least in existence at the void transformation stage. Even if it was a demon beast at the 9th level of the void interpretation stage, the demon beast didn't have the qualifications to be called a demon. Only a demon beast that has stepped into the void transformation stage and was able to take human form had the qualifications to be called a demon. The words demon had always been a synonym for expert. In Cloud Continent, every demon was in existence with shocking strength. Some formidable demons even had the chance to become a demon monarch and even a demon emperor. A demon monarch was equivalent to the martial monarch amongst human martial artists. A demon emperor was equivalent to the martial emperor amongst human martial artists. Their strengths were exceedingly high to the point it was difficult to imagine. Demon. The bloodline of a demon actually flows within the body of this jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Chen Xiaoshuai was dumbstruck. In other words, so long as it matures, it's extremely like to transform into a demon and possess a formidable strength at the void transformation stage. At this moment, Luo Zan could almost hear his own heartbeat. Yes, Su Li nodded. For a time, Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai looked at Duan Lingtian with eyes that had gone red. He bought a demon beast that could transform into a demon for a few million gold. Why don't we have such luck? It's all right if the two of you know this, but you must not tell anyone else. Su Li glanced at Chen Xiaoshuai and Luo Zan with a gaze of warning. Don't worry, Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai hurriedly nodded. After they found out about the background of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse, they knew that it was a hot potato. Outsiders didn't know of the background of the little gold mouse by Duan Lingtian's side, otherwise, they could imagine that experts from all over would come to seize the little gold mouse from Duan Lingtian. At that time, even the top experts in the Darken dynasty would probably be interested in the little gold mouse by Duan Lingtian's side. This little gold mouse was a future demon. Its potential was so great that it was shocking. Presently, they'd already decided to bury this secret in the depths of their hearts. They wouldn't sell Duan Lingtian out. Not because of anything else, but because of Duan Lingtian's acceptance. Earlier, they'd clearly seen the gaze Su Li specially shot at Duan Lingtian to ask Duan Lingtian's opinion before he spoke. They knew that if Duan Lingtian didn't agree, it would be impossible for Su Li to speak about the background of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Whereas since Duan Lingtian agreed, it was sufficient to show that Duan Lingtian didn't take them as outsiders. Treat someone how he treats you. They weren't ungrateful bastards. Duan Lingtian, not only is your natural talent heaven-defying, even you luck is difficult to imagine, buying a future demon for a few million gold, even I'm slightly envious. Chen Xiaoshuai sighed. Luo Zan nodded in deep agreement. Demon, Duan Lingtian snickered in his heart. Actually, when he heard what Su Li said earlier, he knew that Su Li didn't understand a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. At least, his understanding was far inferior to the rebirth martial emperor. In the knowledge Su Li possessed, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse was only a void transformation stage demon when it matured, whereas, according to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, once a jade-eyed heavenly mouse matured, it wouldn't just simple as an ordinary demon. In the history of Cloud Continent, the jade-eyed heavenly mouse kind had no lack of existences at the demon emperor stage. Their strengths were exceedingly high, and they inspired awe in all directions. We ought to leave. Duan Lingtian took the lead to stand up before grabbing the little gold mouse in his hand and placing her on his broad shoulder, and then he called out to Luo Zan and the others. The three of them walked shoulder to shoulder with Duan Lingtian as they left the room at the second floor of the auction house together. This time, besides Duan Lingtian who bought many materials, Luo Zan, Su Li, and Chen Xiaoshui had more or less bought some things. After their group of four left the auction house, they directly returned to the courtyard and returned to their rooms to cultivate. I wonder if any change will occur after Little Gold swallowed that demon beast egg that had lost all signs of life. I hope she'll be able to break through to the 9th level of the void prying stage. Duan Lingtian glanced at the little gold mouse that was snored loudly as she slept, and he thought to himself. The stronger the little gold mouse's strength was, the greater help to him she would be. Once Little Gold awakens, I ought to go look for that ageless root. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If I'm able to refine the rebirth pill before the young genius competition of the Darkstone Empire, then I might have the chance to break through to the void initiation stage in a short period of time and even enter the Sword Monarch's treasure. Duan Lingtian's mood surged, and he seemed as if he'd already seen his extremely bright future. Gradually, Duan Lingtian calmed down his heart. Cultivate. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Form. Duan Lingtian's mind was completely immersed into his cultivation, and he forgot the time and everything else. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, the location of the former 7-star sword sect, in the sky above Dubi Peak. Suddenly, the clouds and mist in the horizon roiled as an enormous figure plunged downwards. Whoosh! The enormous figure had an extremely swift speed, and in the blink of an eye, it had descended onto the vast platform on the peak of Doobie Peak. Who is it? Right at this moment, 3 old men came out from the former trade hall at the side of Doobie Peak. They were precisely the elders of the Azure Forest Trisect. Rock. The 7-star sword sect's rock. The 3 old men looked at the rock that stared fixedly at them, and their faces went pale. Damn it, why has it appeared here? Flee. Their hearts trembled, they didn't dare arouse the thought of going against it, and they divided into 3 directions, soaring into the sky and intending to fly off into the distance. But would they be able to flee? Whoosh! Suddenly, the rock spread open its wings that covered the sky, and it abruptly flapped towards the ground. Instantly, the dust on the ground was completely swept away. Whoosh! The rock seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning as it swiftly flashed out to charge towards one of the old men. Even though the old man was a 2nd-level void initiation stage martial artist with shocking speed, yet that little bit of speed of his wasn't even worth mentioning before the rock. In the blink of an eye, the rock had caught up to him. The sharp claws of the rock swept out to grab onto the old man's head before directly twisting it off. A 2nd-level void initiation stage martial artist, dead. Whoosh, whoosh. Subsequently, the rock repeated the same move, catching up to the other 2 old men in succession before killing them one by one. After killing the 3 old men, the rock looked at the empty Doobie Peak with a pair of eyes that revealed a trace of grief. Whoosh! The rock spread open its wings before started to swiftly search through all over Doobie Peak and even the surrounding 6 great sword peaks. As long as it saw an Azure Forest Trisect elder or disciples, the rock would kill all of them. 564 Chapter 565, First Level Lightning Concept. The 7 great sword peaks of the 7-star sword sect were covered in blood. Whoosh! Suddenly, the rock spread out its wings and directly flew to the peak of Megrez Peak as it seemed to have noticed something. The clouds and mist were shaken to dispersal everywhere the rock passed. In next to no time, a tilted tree behind the clouds and mist appeared before the eyes of the rock. Beside the tilted tree was a cave passageway that led within. The rock's eyes abruptly became fierce, its pair of wings that were like clouds that covered the sky flickered with a frightful sheen, and wind concept raged and suffused within its origin energy. Right at this moment, light sounds of footsteps sounded out from within the cave passageway. In next to no time, a beautiful woman holding a sword walked out. Every step the beautiful woman took seemed to give rise to a wave of fierce sword energy that swept out ahead. 1 step, 2 steps. The beautiful woman had a serious expression, and the seriousness on her face only vanished into thin air when she walked out of the cave passageway, stood on the tilted tree, and saw the rock before her that circled around in the air. Elder Peng. The beautiful woman was precisely Qin Shang, the peak master of the former 7-star sword sect's Alcade Peak. Presently, as she looked at the rock before her, Qin Zhang's delicate figure trembled, and her eyes that were like water were filled with excitement. Little girl Shang, you've returned. After the rock saw Qin Zhang's, the fierceness in his vanished completely, and replacing it was warmth. Presently, compared to the rock that carried out a bloody slaughter on the 7 great sword peaks earlier was simply like a completely different rock. Elder Peng, I thought, it's good that you're fine, it's good that you're fine. Qin Shang heaved a sigh of relief, and her beautiful face was extremely excited. Elder Peng, the sect guarding revered elder of the former 7-star sword sect. An existence like this was still well and living now, and it caused Qin Shang to see the hope for the 7-star sword sect to rise once again. Elder Peng. Meanwhile, another 2 figures walked shoulder to shoulder as they emerged from within the cave passageway. It was precisely Mo Yu and Zheng Song. The rock nodded when he saw the 2 of them, and slight sadness was contained in the depths of his sharp eyes. Only these few people remained from the entire 7-star sword sect. Little girl Qin, it's good that all of you are alive. Presently, all the Azure Forest Trisect members on the 7 great sword sects have been completely annihilated by me. From today onwards, I'll guard the location of the 7-star sword sect and not allow an outsider to encroach on it. The rock's voice transmission was filled with domineering ruthlessness. Don't worry Elder Peng, we'll sooner or later be able to annihilate the Azure Forest Trisect and make the sect become prosperous once again. Qin Shang said to Elder Peng, we have, Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian. A bright light flashed past the rock's sharp eyes when he heard this, and he nodded. He was similarly filled with confidence towards the young man that he'd taken out from the sect all those years ago. Time always flew by swiftly. Unknowingly, another month had passed. Squeak squeak, Duan Lingtian was jolted awake by a wave of cries at dawn. Little Gold, you've awoken. Duan Lingtian woke up from his cultivation, and he opened up his eyes that dazzled like the stars to stare at the little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse nodded, and her jade green eyes flickered with a cunning sheen. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out to envelop the little gold mouse's body, and at the first possible moment, he saw through the little gold mouse's cultivation. Little Gold, you didn't break through. Duan Lingtian was slightly disappointed. He'd initially thought that after the little gold mouse swallowed the demon beast egg and fell into deep sleep, she ought to have a breakthrough. Unexpectedly, the little gold mouse's cultivation still didn't step into the 8th level of the void prying stage, and there was no change in her. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse held up her head when she heard Duan Lingtian, and she cried out complacently. What are you complacent about? You didn't break through. Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes angrily at the little gold mouse. Looks like the demon beast egg I bought for you that day was of no use to you at all, but since it was useless to you, then why did you sleep for a month? As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Right at this moment, the little gold mouse made a move, and she flashed in circles around Duan Lingtian. On the little gold mouse's body, strands of violet-colored energy suffused out. Whoosh! In the sky, an enormous silhouette spiraled downwards to reveal its true appearance. An ancient horned dragon silhouette. Duan Lingtian's expression turned to shock when he saw the ancient horned dragon silhouette above the little gold mouse and the violet-colored energy on the little gold mouse's body. Little Gold, you comprehended first-level lightning concept? Duan Lingtian asked in surprise. Squeak. The little gold mouse replied with a squeak as she nodded her head like a chick pecking on grains. It's because of that demon beast egg. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall that the demon beast egg he'd bid for in the Darkstone Empire's imperial family's auction house 1 month ago had emitted advanced lightning force before its vitality died out. 1 month later, Little Gold who'd consumed that demon beast egg 1 month ago had comprehended first-level lightning concept, and this caused Duan Lingtian to have no choice but to link the two together. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse nodded when she heard Duan Lingtian's question. Looks like that demon beast egg wasn't wasted. At the same time that Duan Lingtian let out a breath of air, slight pleasant surprise appeared on his face. The first-level lightning concept Little Gold had comprehended was an entire strength of 8,000 ancient mammoths more than the advanced lightning force she comprehended before. It was more terrifying that her cultivation breaking through. As an 8th-level void-prying stage demon beast, when her origin energy completely exploded out was comparable to the strength of 1 ancient horned dragon and 1,000 ancient mammoths. Presently, when the first-level lightning concept was added on, without utilizing a spirit weapon, Little Gold was able to exert a strength of 2 ancient horned dragons and 1,000 ancient mammoths. If she utilized a spirit weapon, the spirit weapon in the little gold mouse's possession was a grade 4 spirit weapon refined by Duan Lingtian, and it was able to amplify strength by 60%. Although this amplification could only affect her own strength, but the little gold mouse's own strength was still the strength of 1 ancient horned dragon and 1,000 ancient mammoths. In other words, the grade 4 spirit sword in her possession was able to amplify her strength by the strength of 6,600 ancient mammoth. Presently, once Little Gold went all out, she would be able to exert the strength of 2 ancient horned dragons and 7,600 ancient mammoths. There's practically no demon beast or martial artist beneath the void initiation stage that can defeat her. Even if there was one, it would be extremely rare. This was something that Duan Lingtian firmly believed. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse transformed into a gold light and descended onto Duan Lingtian's shoulder, and her pair of jade green eyes were filled with complacency. You little fellow, I truly never imagined that a dead egg bought for a mere 1 million gold was actually able to be transformed into such a great thing in your hands, and it assisted you in comprehending first-level lightning concept. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh when he thought about what the little gold mouse went through. Little Gold, I intend to go on a long journey. Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse as he spoke. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse instantly became excited when she heard this. Okay, big brother Lingtian, where are we going? We're going to 2 cities, one of them is a comparatively special city in the Darkstone Empire, the other is a city in the Darken Dynasty. Duan Lingtian spoke of his plan. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian had gone to look for Kai Ming. Vice Dean Kai, I'll be temporarily leaving for a period of time. When he saw Kai Ming frown and seem to want to say something, Duan Lingtian said before him, "Don't worry Vice Dean Kai, I'll surely return, and I'll absolutely not miss the Young Genius competition that's being held 7 months from now." Since Duan Lingtian had made a guarantee, it wasn't good for Kai Ming to continue persuading Duan Lingtian. "Take care," said Kai Ming. He was able to discern that Duan Lingtian seemed to be in a hurry to leave, and Duan Lingtian obviously had something urgent to do. "Okay." Duan Lingtian nodded before bringing along the little gold mouse and leaving directly. He even didn't bid his farewells to Luo Zan, Su Li, and Chen Xiaoshuai. Duan Lingtian had only just left the courtyard when a person stealthily followed him. What does Duan Lingtian want to do? A middle-aged man in luxurious clothes followed behind Duan Lingtian, and his eyes flickered with an icy cold light. Prince Shang. But he hadn't walked out a few steps when he heard an aged voice sound out from behind him. Instantly, the body of the middle-aged man stiffened. Revered Elder Kai. He knew that it was impossible for him to make a move against Duan Lingtian, and at the same time that this caused him to feel slightly aggrieved, he was filled with helplessness. It's all because of that Azure Forest Tri-sect not keeping their promises, otherwise, Duan Lingtian would have died long ago. When he thought of the Azure Forest Tri-sect standing him up, he couldn't help but become infuriated. He was born of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family, and he possessed a high status. Who dared stand him up? What Azure Forest Tri-sect? You even dare to play tricks on this prince? Prince Shang's expression was extremely gloomy. Kai Ming silently looked at Prince Shang's face that went gloomy, yet he didn't say anything. He naturally knew of Prince Shang's intentions. However, Prince Shang was the younger brother of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's emperor, after all. No matter how great of a crime Prince Shang committed, it wasn't his place to correct Prince Shang. What he could do was to keep his eyes on Prince Shang and protect Duan Lingtian's safety. Whoosh! Presently, outside the imperial city of Darkstone Empire, a gold light shot into the sky and vanished in the horizon in the blink of an eye. Atop the layers of clouds, the gold light's speed doubled. Rumble! A wave of rumbling thunder that was deafening sounded out at practically the exact same moment, and the rumbling followed the gold light to head towards the northeast. The owner of the gold light was an enormous gold mouse. The gold mouse was completely fluffy and looked to be extremely cute, and on the back of this enormous gold mouse was a violet-clothed young man sitting cross-legged there. The violet-clothed young man sat there and cultivated silently. This pair of man and mouse was precisely Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse. After he'd notified Kai Ming, Duan Lingtian had brought along the little gold mouse and left the Darkstone Empire's imperial city at the first possible moment. His time was limited. I only hope that the time of half a year is sufficient to allow me to find the ageless root. Duan Lingtian only had one goal when he left the imperial city of Darkstone Empire this time. It was to find the last secondary medicinal catalyst required to refine the rebirth pill, the ageless root. So long as he found the ageless root, he would be able to successfully refine the rebirth pill. When he refined the rebirth pill, his strength would advance by leaps and bounds. Not to mention surpassing Su Li, it wasn't impossible for him to surpass even the little gold mouse. Big brother Lingtian, where are we going now? The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and the immature voice of a young girl was graceful and pleasing to the ear. 565 Chapter 566, Treasure Gathering Pavilion. Flourishing Summer City. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he spoke slowly. Flourishing Summer City, what is that place? The little gold mouse asked curiously. It's the largest trade city in the Darkstone Empire, and it's similar to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's ancient city of Everlast. Supposedly, the Darkstone Empire's flourishing summer city is even more chaotic than the ancient city of Everlast. Duan Lingtian continued. So, if there isn't a necessity, you must not cause trouble for me, do you understand? As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his tone became slightly strict. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out and agreed. The flourishing summer city was situated in the northeast area of the Darkstone Empire. The little gold mouse flew at full speed, and her speed wasn't inferior to a first-level void initiation stage martial artist. 10 days later, Duan Lingtian saw the outline of flourishing summer city. The city walls on all 4 sides of flourishing summer city were completely pitch black like ink. The buildings within the city were practically all made of black bricks. That day, the sky was dim as dark clouds had gathered on the horizon, and it enveloped the entire flourishing summer city within it. When coupled with the flourishing summer city that was completely pitch black, it gave people a feeling as if the city might crumble under the mass of dark clouds. Big Brother Ling Tian, this is the flourishing summer city? The little gold mouse asked. Exactly, find a place to descend to the ground outside the city and we'll enter. Duan Ling Tian nodded before notifying the little gold mouse. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian brought along the little gold mouse that had shrunk back to her small size and stood on his shoulder, and he walked into flourishing summer city with large strides. The flourishing summer city was extremely big, and it wasn't inferior in the slightest towards the Darkstone Empire's imperial city. After he entered the city, a large road that was unusually wide entered into his eyes. Pedestrians came and went in continuous streams, and streams of carriages flowed without end. It gave others an extremely flourishing feeling. As expected of the trade city that's second to none in the Darkstone Empire, in terms of how flourishing it is, even the imperial city is unable to compare to it. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Suddenly, whoosh, 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 a wave of howls of the wind suddenly sounded out above Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian looked up and looked, and only now did he notice that there were many people flashing past low in the air, and their speeds were swift like a bolt of lightning. Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force silently stretched out. After a short moment, he detected the cultivations of these people. Amongst these people, most of them were existences above the 7th level of the void prying stage, and there were many existences at the void initiation stage as well. An empire isn't something an imperial kingdom can compare to. Duan Ling Tian sighed slightly with emotion. But after Duan Ling Tian arrived here, he directly headed towards the center of the city. Big Brother Ling Tian, where are we going? The little gold mouse was able to discern that Duan Ling Tian was moving with a destination in mind. You'll know soon. Duan Ling Tian didn't specify it and continued to walk forward with the little gold mouse. In the end, Duan Ling Tian stopped moving before a luxurious building at the center of flourishing summer city. Treasure Gathering Pavilion. The luxurious building before Duan Ling Tian was beautifully decorated, and it occupied the best area of flourishing summer city. With just a look, one was able to know that it wasn't a business under a normal power. Duan Ling Tian walked in with large strides. This treasure gathering pavilion was exactly his destination when he came to flourishing summer city this time. The treasure gathering pavilion is a business under a formidable power in the Darken Dynasty, and there are branches in every empire under the Darken Dynasty. Besides gathering treasures in the entire world, the treasure gathering pavilion sold many treasures as well. The treasure gathering pavilion disdained to gather ordinary treasures, only spirit weapons that were grade 5 or above had the qualifications to enter the treasure gathering pavilions. The treasure gathering pavilion utterly took no fancy towards spirit weapons at grade 6 or below. Besides gathering and selling various treasures, the treasure gathering pavilion also provided services like sale consignments. Of course, one could offer a reward as well. Duan Ling Tian had inquired about all this in the Darkstone Empire's imperial city. He's come here precisely for the sake of offering a reward. Guest, may I know if you need something? Duan Ling Tian had only just entered the treasure gathering pavilion when an attendant moved over to greet him, and the attendant revealed a professional smile. Duan Ling Tian's pupils couldn't help but constrict when he glanced at the attendant. Heavens! What did I see? A mere attendant actually possesses a cultivation at the first level of the void prying stage. This treasure gathering pavilion deserves to be called a business under a formidable power in the Darken Dynasty. What extravagance! Duan Ling Tian's heart was greatly shocked. I want to offer a reward, said Duan Ling Tian to the attendant. Offer a reward? The attendant nodded and brought Duan Ling Tian to walk up to the second floor of the treasure gathering pavilion and brought Duan Ling Tian to stand before a counter. Guest, what are you offering a reward for? You can register it here. Before the counter stood a middle-aged man with a calm expression, and he had an expressionless face. 4th level void prying stage. When Duan Ling Tian's spiritual force stretched out, he noticed the middle-aged man's cultivation at the first possible moment. He never imagined that a martial artist that looked after a counter in the treasure gathering pavilion had a cultivation that was similar to him. Guest, may I know what you want to offer a reward for? The middle-aged man looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked slowly. Ageless root. I need to offer a reward for the ageless root. Duan Ling Tian's eyes squinted as he spoke resolute and decisively. Ageless root. The middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Duan Ling Tian. Guest, please describe the characteristics of the thing you want, Besides that, if it's convenient, I hope that guest can leave a drawing. Obviously, the middle-aged man didn't know what the ageless root was. All right, Duan Lingtian nodded, and after he casually spoke of the characteristics of the ageless root, he swung his hand to draw the ageless root on the white paper the middle-aged man had prepared. It's this thing. Duan Lingtian looked at the middle-aged man and spoke slowly. Guest, what are you offering as reward? Our treasure-gathering pavilion only accepts treasures and doesn't accept money when one offers a reward for something. The middle-aged man reminded. Slap. With a raise of his hand, a 3-foot-long blade that flickered with an azure light appeared in Duan Lingtian's hand, and he directly slapped it onto the counter. The reward is this. A spirit weapon. The middle-aged man frowned as he said, Guest, our treasure-gathering pavilion only accepts spirit weapons at grade 5 or above. How do you know it isn't a grade 5 spirit weapon? Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man. This person didn't even take a glance at the spirit weapon he took out, yet had hastily come to a conclusion. Wasn't he rather too hasty? The middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. When he looked at Duan Lingtian for the first time, he'd looked down on Duan Lingtian because of Duan Lingtian's age. After all, as far as he was concerned, a young man like this was probably unable to take out a spirit weapon that was grade 5 or above. But when he saw Duan Lingtian's calmness now, the middle-aged man realized that he might have underestimated the young man. The middle-aged man grabbed up the spirit sword Duan Lingtian placed on the table, and his origin energy fused into it. Instantly, 6,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes first appeared in the sky above the middle-aged man, and then another 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared after it. The middle-aged man was dumbstruck when he saw this scene, and the attendant that brought Duan Lingtian in was dumbstruck as well. Heavens! What have we seen? An amplification of 59%. The attendant fiercely gulped a mouthful of saliva, and he had a shocked expression. Grade 4 spirit sword. The middle-aged man gasped, and his gaze was completely different when he looked at Duan Lingtian once more. According to his knowledge, a grade 4 weapons craftsman seemed to not exist in the Darkstone Empire. In other words, the grade 4 spirit sword that the young man before him took out was very likely to have been refined by a grade 4 weapon craftsman from the Darken Dynasty. In the Darken Dynasty, people who were able to have a grade 4 weapons craftsman refine a grade 4 spirit weapon could be counted on one's fingers. All of those existences were the leaders of the various great powers of the Darken Dynasty. This young man isn't simple. The middle-aged man's heart shook. How about it? Can this thing be the reward? Duan Lingtian asked indifferently, and he seemed as if he didn't notice the shock on the middle-aged man's face. Yes, of course. The middle-aged man hurriedly nodded like a chick pecking on grains, then he recalled how he underestimated the young man earlier, and he was slightly embarrassed. That's good. Duan Lingtian nodded. Now, help me register it. Yes. The middle-aged man didn't dare dally as he hurriedly withdrew a jade ornament. The middle of the jade ornament had an obvious crack. Right when Duan Lingtian was wondering why the middle-aged man had withdrawn a broken jade ornament. Snap! The middle-aged man pulled the jade ornament apart, keeping one half while giving the other half to Duan Lingtian. Guest, when you come to our treasure-gathering pavilion next, then no matter if it's to take back your grade 4 spirit sword or to take back the item you placed a reward for, you have to use this authentication token to exchange for it. The middle-aged man spoke to Duan Lingtian with a serious expression. Duan Lingtian nodded, and received the half of the jade token and asked. When should I come to confirm it? At least 3 months of time. Guest can come take it after 3 months, said the middle-aged man. Because Duan Lingtian took out a grade 4 spirit sword, a tremendous change had occurred to the attitude he had towards Duan Lingtian. All right, Duan Lingtian nodded, and then he asked. I heard that when I offer something up as reward, your treasure-gathering pavilion required me to pay a certain amount of administration fees. I wonder how much I have to pay. The middle-aged man said with a smile, Guest, our treasure-gathering has a rule that if a guest offers a spirit weapon of grade 4 or above as a reward, then the administration fee is waived. Waived administration fee? Duan Lingtian was stunned. There's even such a rule. With a quick thought, Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. In the entire Darken Dynasty, a grade 4 spirit weapon was an extremely rare item. The treasure-gathering pavilion taking care of a person that can take out a grade 4 spirit weapon to be offered up as a reward was understandable. After all, a grade 4 spirit weapon normally represented a grade 4 weapons craftsman, whereas in the entire Darkin dynasty, a grade 4 weapons craftsman was an extremely rare existence, an existence that was even rarer than a void interpretation stage expert. Then I'll be troubling you. Duan Lingtian nodded, and after he put away the jade token, he brought along the little gold mouse and left hastily. After Duan Lingtian left, the middle-aged man heaved a sigh of relief, and as he looked at the grade 4 spirit weapon, he muttered. He was willing to take out a grade 4 spirit weapon to be offered up as a reward. Exactly what is that young man's background? Subsequently, the middle-aged man raised his head to look at the nearby attendant, and he said with a low voice, "Quickly go report this to the pavilion master." 566 Chapter 567, Young Girl and Snakes. Big brother Lingtian, you directly passed over a grade 4 spirit sword to him, aren't you afraid he will pocket it himself? After leaving the treasure-gathering pavilion, the little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ear. Pocket it? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. In the territory of the Darkin dynasty, this treasure-gathering pavilion is known far and wide. They still have this little bit of trustworthiness, not to mention, even if he wants to pocket it, he would need to have the courage to do so. A grade 4 spirit sword was able to make people associated with a grade 4 weapons craftsman, whereas, all the grade 4 weapons craftsmen in the Darkin dynasty were masters that were revered by all. There were very few people that dare defend them. So, Duan Lingtian didn't think that the treasure-gathering pavilion dared to pocket his grade 4 spirit sword. Bang! Suddenly, a loud bang sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian glanced over and saw a large and burly man who was half-naked had smashed a middle-aged man flying with a single punch. Subsequently, the burly man's arms stretched out and 2 morning stars appeared out of thin air before flashing out, and they seemed to have transformed into 2 shooting stars that smashed down towards the middle-aged man. Another loud bang sounded out, and the middle-aged man was completely devoid of any signs of life. His corpse was mangled and in an extremely tragic state. 9th level of the void prying stage. The ancient horned dragon and thousands of ancient mammoth silhouettes above the burly man caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from looking over. Everywhere he passed, Duan Lingtian saw a great deal of similar bloody scenes. The rumors aren't fake. This Darkstone Empire's flourishing summer city is indeed more chaotic than the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's ancient city of Everlast. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh with emotion. On his way here, he'd moved all the way towards the treasure-gathering pavilion and didn't pay attention to the surroundings. Now that he intended to leave, he paid attention to the surroundings, and it allowed him to feel the brutality of flourishing Summer City. Kid, hand over the spatial ring on your hand and the gold for mouse, otherwise, I'll make you die a graveless death. The city gate was right before his eyes, yet Duan Lingtian heard an arrogant voice sound out by his ears. Subsequently, something flashed before Duan Lingtian's eyes, and a tall and robust figure had appeared before him. This was a robust man with 3 hideous scars that were like 3 centipedes on his face, and it was extremely shocking. One of the scars even started from the left of his face, went past his nose and connected all the way to the right side of his face. The saber-scarred man held a large saber in his hand as he looked condescendingly at Duan Lingtian, and his eyes that were large like copper gongs were filled with bloodiness and ruthlessness. Die a graveless death. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, and a wisp of disdain appeared on the corners of his mouth. Just you. At the instant the saber-scarred man appeared, Duan Lingtian had used his acute spiritual force to detect the man's exact cultivation at the first possible moment. 9th level of the void prying stage. Similar to the burly man who held morning stars that Duan Lingtian had seen earlier. Kid, you've enraged me. The saber-scarred man went completely berserk when faced with Duan Lingtian's disdain, and he swung up the large saber in his hand before slashing it down towards Duan Lingtian. I'll slice you into mush. Little gold. Duan Lingtian's face was covered in a layer of ice as he shouted out in a light voice. Instantly, a gold light flashed out from the shoulder of Duan Lingtian who stood there unmoving like a mountain. Swish! An ear-piercing and swift howl of the sword appeared out of thin air, and accompanying it was a light and ear-piercing thunderclap. In the next moment, the body of the saber-scarred man who was charging towards Duan Lingtian in full fury had stopped halfway towards Duan Lingtian, and then it staggered. You, the saber-scarred man stared at Duan Lingtian as a wisp of terror suffused his eyes. Subsequently, a bloody hole abruptly appeared on his throat. Dazzling and resplendent fresh blood sprayed out from the bloody hole, and it flowed ceaselessly as if it wasn't worth anything. Bang! Finally, the saber-scarred man couldn't hold on any longer, and his large eyes that were like copper eyes were sprung wide open as he crashed onto the ground without a sign of life. Dead. Squeak squeak. Right at this moment, accompanied by a wave of sharp cries, the gold light flashed past one more and the little gold mouse had returned to Duan Lingtian's shoulder. Let's go. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the surrounding people that were dumbstruck, and he brought the little gold mouse as he headed out of the city. Everywhere he passed, there wasn't a single person who dared go against him. Lightning, first-level lightning concept. Someone only recovered from their shock after Duan Lingtian's figure vanished before their eyes, and the person exclaimed out with a low voice. That demon beast is so terrifying, it has actually comprehended lightning concept. The crowd of people nearby the city gate of flourishing Summer City were astounded. Saber Scar is really unfortunate this time, he offended an existence he shouldn't. Yeah, Saber Scar's strength can be considered to be not bad, but before that mouse-type demon beast, it wasn't worth mentioning, and he didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. Many people looked at the corpse of the saber-scarred man on the ground, and they shook their heads, whereas outside flourishing Summer City, Duan Lingtian sat onto the back of the little gold mouse that had enlarged herself, and they continued forward. Big brother Lingtian, where are we going now? The little gold mouse asked. The Darken Dynasty. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he spoke word by word. Darken Dynasty. The little gold mouse's jade green eyes lit up when she heard this. The Darken Dynasty surely has many tasty things. You little fellow, what else do you know besides eating? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched slightly. Hee hee, big brother Lingtian, where's the Darken Dynasty? The little gold mouse asked. North. Duan Lingtian looked towards the north as he guided the little gold mouse. Whoosh. Instantly, the little gold mouse's figure flashed out while accompanied by a wave of deafening thunderclaps to head towards the north, whereas Duan Lingtian instead sat silently on the back of the little gold mouse, closing his eyes to cultivate 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Force. Presently, my cultivation only lacks a bit before it's sufficient to break through to the 5th level of the void-prying stage, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as the origin energy in his body flowed tirelessly. 3 days later. The origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body roiled as they gathered together and flashed towards the final bottleneck of the 4th level of the void-prying stage. Bang! The vast origin energy charged at the bottleneck, causing the bottleneck to loosen up. Still a little bit more. Duan Lingtian didn't hesitate to gather his origin energy once more, and then charge at the bottleneck a second time. Bang! He was still unable to charge through the bottleneck on his second try. Bang! The third, time after time, until the 9th time. Bang! Duan Lingtian's origin energy instantly charged through the bottleneck, whereas, right at this instant, a tremendous qualitative change occurred in his origin energy. I've broken through. Duan Lingtian abruptly opened his eyes that flickered with a flowing light, and it was like a dazzling star in the night sky, causing everything in the surroundings to be cast into the shade. 5th level of the void-prying stage. Under his excitement, the origin energy on Duan Lingtian's body skyrocketed and seemed to have transformed into an enormous ball of flames. In the sky, 7,000 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Big brother Lingtian, you've broken through. The little gold mouse's immature and naive voice that was like a young girl sounded out in Duan Lingtian's ears in a timely manner. Yes, Duan Lingtian lightly smiled as he nodded. Little gold, you have to work hard, otherwise, the day will come where I'll surpass you. Hee hee, I surely won't allow big brother Lingtian to surpass me. I'm not far away from the 9th level of the void-prying stage, said the little gold mouse via voice transmission, and her tone was filled with confidence. We'll see. Duan Lingtian's eyes slightly narrowed. He believed that so long as he was able to refine the rebirth pill, it wouldn't take long for him to surpass the little gold mouse. Unfortunately, there's only one rebirth pill and it can't be consumed in parts. Otherwise, its medicinal strength would be reduced greatly. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. Otherwise, if he let the little gold mouse consume the rebirth pill as well, he would have a great assistance by his side. With the little gold mouse's current strength, once she consumed the rebirth pill, she would surely be even more terrifying. Never mind, no matter how strong little gold is, she's only an external source of strength for me in the end. There are many times when I can only rely on myself after all. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that only when he himself possessed an extremely formidable strength would he be able to be considered a true expert. Rebirth Pill, Ageless Root. Duan Lingtian looked towards the direction of the Darkened Dynasty, and his mood surged. When Duan Lingtian was heading towards the Darkened Dynasty, at the southwest area of the Darkstone Empire, a swift flowing light flashed past from the horizon and headed directly south. Above the clouds and mist, a young girl in yellow clothed who was extraordinary soared in the sky. The young girl's beautiful face that was like carved jade was sufficient to make anyone to feel tender and protective towards her. Hiss hiss, suddenly, restless sounds sounded out from beneath the young girl's sleeve. The young girl slowed down. She raised her delicate hand and grabbed out two little pythons from beneath her sleeve. The two little pythons were black and white respectively. On the body of the black-colored little python was bright gold striations that flickered with a dazzling sheen. On its head was a gold-colored horn that was extremely sharp, and it flickered with a frightful cold light. The white-colored little python on the other hand wasn't much different to the black-colored little python, and the only difference was that the striations on its body and horn on its head was silver in color. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons coiled around the young girl's white wrist, their eyes stared ahead with concentration, and their eyes flickered with traces of human-like reminiscence. Little black, little white, the both of you are thinking about Big Brother Lingtian again. The yellow-clothed young girl lightly rubbed the little heads of the two little pythons, and she asked with a light smile. The two little pythons lightly nodded, and their soft bodies were excited to the point they started trembling. Swish, swish. Suddenly, the two little pythons flashed out, transforming into two extremely swift bolts of lightning that headed straight towards the south. In the blink of an eye, they'd vanished before the yellow-clothed young girl. Little black, little white, wait for me. The young girl followed up, and her graceful figure chased up to the two little pythons in the blink of an eye. Hiss hiss, the sharp eyes of the two little pythons shone, and they were anxious to return home as soon as possible. It wasn't long before the yellow-clothed young girl and the two little pythons left the territory of the Darkstone Empire and entered the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Qing Nu probably wouldn't notice that we've already left for some time. I must properly have fun outside this time. The yellow-clothed young girl brought along the two little pythons and directly headed to the south of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Not long after, 7 mountains that were like sharp sword that shot into the sky had appeared before the eyes of the young girl. Hiss hiss, meanwhile, the two little pythons seemed as if they'd taken stimulants, and they were extremely excited. The young girl in yellow clothes stood in the sky above the 7 great sword peaks, and as she looked at the cloud and mist that roiled beneath her, her beautiful brows frowned. Whoosh! Right at this moment, an enormous figure swept away the clouds and mist to appear before the eyes of the young girl and the two little pythons. 567 Chapter 568, Blessing in Disguise. It was an extremely enormous rock that circled up from below the clouds and mist. The rock's wings that were like clouds that covered the sky were spread out, and its imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow. The rock's fierce eyes were staring fixedly at the yellow-clothed young girl that was high above in the sky. The yellow-clothed young girl noticed the rock and was slightly surprised. I never expected that I would be able to meet a demon beast with the bloodline of the Goldwing Grand Rock. Goldwing Grand Rock. The rock's eyes squinted when he heard the yellow-clothed young girl, and he said via voice transmission. Little girl, who are you? You're actually able to notice that I possess the bloodline of the Goldwing Grand Rock. You wouldn't know even if I tell you. The yellow-clothed young girl's gaze passed through the clouds and mist to descend onto a sword peak at the side of the 7 great sword peaks. Alright, I'm not going to continue talking with you, I want to go look for Big Brother Lingtian. As she spoke, the yellow-clothed young girl flashed down. Big Brother Lingtian. The rock was stunned, and then he asked via voice transmission, are you talking about Duan Lingtian? You know Big Brother Lingtian? The young girl stopped moving and looked at the rock. Of course I know him, but he isn't here anymore. When the rock saw that the person that had arrived was likely to be a friend of Duan Lingtian's, the fierceness in his eyes vanished slightly. He isn't here anymore. The young girl was stunned. Hiss hiss, right at this moment, 2 little heads stuck out from beneath the young girl's sleeve, and they flicked their tongues as their eyes flickered with slight disappointment. Do you know where Big Brother Lingtian has gone? The young girl asked. I only know that he went to the Crimson Sky Kingdom more than 2 years ago, said the rock. All that he spoke of now was something he heard from Qin Shang. As for where Duan Lingtian had gone now, he knew nothing of it. Crimson Sky Kingdom, the young girl nodded, and then she raised her hand as she flashed out. Little Black, Little White, we're going to the Crimson Sky Kingdom to look for Big Brother Ling Tian. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons instantly became excited and joyful. The Rock's pupils constricted as he looked at the yellow-clothed young girl vanishing in the blink of an eye, and his feelings surged. A young girl around the age of 16 actually possesses such a terrifying cultivation. It caused him to be unable to help from arousing terror in his heart. What kind of people does that fellow, Duan Ling Tian, know? The Rock muttered in his heart. The Darken dynasty was vast without bounds. Even if the little gold mouse was flying at full speed now. After they entered the Darken dynasty, Duan Ling Tian didn't see a trace of human habitation for a continuous 2 months of time. Everything that entered his eye was a boundless desert. We wouldn't have come to the Darken dynasty's southern desert, right? Duan Ling Tian sat on the back of the little gold mouse, and as he looked down at the boundless desert, he revealed a bitter smile on his face. He'd head of the southern desert of the Darken dynasty. Supposedly, the southern desert was a desolate place. Not only were signs of human habitation rare in the desert, even wild beasts, fierce beasts, and demon beasts were extremely rare. It could be said that the southern desert was an undeveloped region. Originally, even if it was undeveloped, as the territory of the Darken dynasty, it ought to not be so desolate. However, in this region of the Darken dynasty, there was a thing that caused even nether interpretation stage experts to tremble upon hearing of it, and that was the sandstorm. A sandstorm came from nature, and its might was boundless. If it was a strong sandstorm, then even a void interpretation stage expert would be unable to flee death when encountering it. Although a void interpretation stage expert's strength wasn't weak, before the force of nature, it was instead like an ant that wasn't worth mentioning. I wouldn't have really arrived at the southern desert, right? Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly and prayed secretly. I hope that I won't encounter the sandstorm that's specific to the southern desert of the Darken dynasty. Little Gold, continue flying towards this direction and we'll sooner or later be able to leave this desert, said Duan Ling Tian to the little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse replied and continued flying forward swiftly. 3 days later, Duan Ling Tian originally had his eyes closed as he cultivated, yet suddenly, a wave of unusually fierce winds assaulted his face. As a martial artist who'd comprehended half-step advanced wind force, Duan Ling Tian had extremely acute intuition towards wind. This was something that the little gold mouse was unable to compare to him. It wouldn't be such a coincidence, right? Duan Ling Tian looked ahead as he muttered. Not long after, Duan Ling Tian's expression completely went grim. Because he saw at the end of the desert before him, sand had suddenly surged up to cover the sky, and it continued to flash towards the direction of him and Little Gold. The sand arrived nearby in a short moment. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian was able to sense a wave of terrifying fierce winds blow over, and it caused the little gold mouse to be unable to move an inch. Whoosh, whoosh, fierce winds blew in the distance, and the sand that covered the sky was accompanied by a terrifying tornado as it swept over. Everywhere it passed, the ground on the desert cracked open, and the airflow in the sky moved swiftly and emitted a wave of ear-piercing sounds of air exploding. Little Gold, turn around. Flee. Duan Ling Tian recovered from his shock and hurriedly shouted out explosively. At practically the instant Duan Ling Tian spoke, the little gold mouse had turned around and flashed out towards where they came from. Flee, flee. Duan Ling Tian felt the sandstorm behind him approaching, and his expression was unsightly to the extreme. At this moment, the band that held Duan Ling Tian's hair behind him had broken, his hair fluttered lightly with the wind as the violet clothes on him were swept by the wind to the point they emitted flapping sounds. The fierce winds grew closer and closer. Even if the little gold mouse moved at full speed, it seemed that it would still be difficult for her to flee from the pursuit of the sandstorm. I really am a jinx. When he thought about what he prayed for 3 days ago, Duan Ling Tian wished for nothing more than to slap himself. The good didn't come true, yet the bad did. Presently, the sandstorm behind him was practically boundless. With the little gold mouse's speed, they utterly had no place to flee. The speed of this sandstorm is probably sufficient to compare to the speed of an ordinary 4th-level void initiation stage martial artist. Perhaps, this level of sandstorm was nothing in the eyes of a void interpretation stage expert, but in the eyes of Duan Ling Tian, it was comparable to a dreadful monster that would swallow him at any moment. Little Gold, flee towards the left. Quickly. Duan Ling Tian turned around, and after he clearly saw the direction of the sandstorm with a focused gaze, he hurriedly urged the little gold mouse. Whoosh! The little gold mouse didn't hesitate in the slightest to flash towards the left. However, the speed of the sandstorm was truly too swift. The little gold mouse was utterly unable to leave the area the sandstorm swept through before it chased up to them. Big brother Ling Tian, I've tried my best. The immature voice of the little gold mouse was filled with helplessness. I never imagined that our luck would be so good that we'd encounter the sandstorm of the Darkened Dynasty's southern desert the first time we came to the Darkened Dynasty. Duan Ling Tian smiled bitterly. Right at this moment, the sandstorm came closer and closer, and it was only a mile away from Duan Ling Tian and the little gold mouse. Whoosh! The little gold mouse flew desperately, yet in the end, they still were swallowed by the sandstorm. Little gold! Duan Ling Tian felt a fierce wind assault him from behind, and accompanying it was sand that covered the sky that completely covered his field of vision. Not only that, at this moment, he felt he'd lost control of his entire body, and he was brought along by an extremely strong fierce wind to revolve in midair, and it caused him to feel dizzy. Duan Ling Tian's body tensed as the origin energy on his body swept up, and the half-step advanced wind force and half-step advanced lightning force suffused out after it. Even though he'd done this, Duan Ling Tian was still unable to withstand the fierce winds that enveloped him. His origin energy and force was shattered by the fierce winds swept out and hit him. Gradually, Duan Ling Tian abandoned resistance, and he allowed the sandstorm to bring him flying. Little gold, little gold. Of course, Duan Ling Tian didn't forget about the little gold mouse. But no matter how he shouted, his voice was reversed back by the sandstorm and it entered into his ears. The little gold mouse had completely vanished. I hope little gold is fine, Duan Ling Tian said in his heart. Time slowly passed by. Duan Ling Tian didn't know how long had passed as he didn't have the mood to count the time. Presently, he was swept flying by the sandstorm, and he could only use his half-step advanced wind force and fuse it into the fierce winds of the sandstorm to search for a way to conform with the winds. The outcome of doing this was that it allowed Duan Ling Tian to escape disaster and not be minced by the sandstorm. Little gold's strength far surpasses mine, and she has even comprehended first-level lightning concept. She ought to be fine. As he felt the sandstorm was ceaselessly weakening, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. When he thought about this, Duan Ling Tian's heart stopped worrying, and he wasn't so irritable as before. After he stopped worrying, Duan Ling Tian started to observe the sandstorm. The sandstorm was mainly formed by the sweeping fierce winds that covered the sky, and the sand within it had only arisen along with the wind. Its essence was the wind. The fierce winds swept and slapped onto Duan Ling Tian's tattered clothes, and slapped onto his face. Duan Ling Tian's whose eyes were closed and allowed the fierce winds to take him flying had gradually seemed to have fused into the fierce winds. Wind, at this moment, Duan Ling Tian's comprehension towards wind force transformed. Duan Ling Tian's mind had completely fused into wind force, and he's completely forgotten about the outside world. Wind is sufficient to sweep through everything. Just like the fierce wind in this sandstorm that's strong to the extreme. Even a void interpretation stage expert or a void transformation stage expert wouldn't able to withstand it in the slightest. Duan Ling Tian silently thought in his heart. Bang! Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian felt his entire body jolt, and his internal organs trembled. When he opened his eyes, he noticed that the sandstorm had already vanished, and only the slight breeze that blew ceaselessly remained. He didn't have the time to think about where he'd been blown to. He stood up and unclenched his fists. On the surface of his body, stands of azure energy suddenly condensed into form and suffused out. Wind force. At the same time, 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above Duan Ling Tian. My wind force has finally entered the advanced stage. Duan Ling Tian's feelings surged as he revealed an expression of wild joy. He was already extremely fortunate that he didn't die from encountering the sandstorm this time. Yet he never imagined that he would actually profit from this misfortune and comprehend advanced wind force from the fierce winds in the sandstorm. Comprehending advanced wind force also meant that Duan Ling Tian's strength had advanced a level higher. After his wild joy, Duan Ling Tian calmed down. Where's little gold? Only now did Duan Ling Tian think of the little gold mouse, and he started to search around everywhere. 568 Chapter 569, Zhu Qing. Whirlwind, whirlwind. Duan Ling Tian's figure flashed as he searched all around. In the end, he noticed that there wasn't a trace of the little gold mouse, and this caused him to feel rather helpless. I wonder where little gold is. Duan Ling Tian was slightly worried. Although he could confirm that the little gold mouse ought to have no been harmed by the sandstorm, but the hearts of men were dangerous. If little gold encountered other martial artists, it would be a potential danger to her. It was fine if it was a weak martial artist, but he was afraid that little gold would encounter a formidable martial artist. Presently, I utterly don't know what place this is. Duan Lingtian looked at his surroundings, and only a boundless desert entered his eyes, a desert whose bounds were too far for the eye to see. He didn't know from which direction did the sandstorm blow him from, nor did he know where the little gold mouse was blown to now. I'll extend the area and look around the surroundings to see if I can find little gold's tracks. If it's really not possible, then I can only first leave this desert myself. Duan Lingtian had a plan in his heart. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian soared up into the sky with origin energy flashing beneath his legs, and his origin energy was accompanied by his advanced wind force and half-step advanced lightning force as he flew out. Even though his speed was inferior to the little gold mouse, it wasn't slow in the slightest. It wasn't long before Duan Lingtian noticed there were people ahead. In the distance, 3 black dots had appeared in the desert before Duan Lingtian. When he approached and took a look, it was a young girl that was a little over 20 and 2 middle-aged men. The woman wore beautiful clothes, and she obviously had an extraordinary background. As for the 2 middle-aged men, they wore similar clothes, and they were obviously the subordinates by the young girl's side. Presently, the 3 of them were fatigued from travel, and they were in an extremely sorry state. These 3 people were probably affected by the sandstorm as well. Duan Lingtian guessed in his heart. What do the both of you want to do? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian heard the sharp cry of the young girl. Subsequently, he saw that the middle-aged men who seemed to be subordinates had stopped the young girl from both front and back, and both of them revealed frenzied expressions. Both of you have gone mad. The young girl had a livid expression that was extremely unsightly. We haven't gone mad. One of the middle-aged men revealed a frenzied smile. Second young miss, the eldest young master usually doesn't take us to be people, although you never said it yourself, all of us know that you never took us to be people either. Exactly. Today, the sandstorm can be considered to have fulfilled our wishes. We'll kill you, second young miss, today and seize all the wealth within your spatial ring, and from today onwards, we'll go away to a faraway place. The other middle-aged man walked step by step towards the young girl, and his eyes revealed an unusual sheen. Perhaps, we don't even have to go far away, we'll say that we never saw second young miss. The sandstorm broke us up from the eldest young master. Who would know that we were with second young miss? The middle-aged man before her spoke out again. Both of you, don't act recklessly. I can give both of you anything you want, so long as the both of you send me back, I can make my father and older brother reward both of you properly. The wealth within my spatial ring is limited, I can make my father and older brother reward the both of you with even more. The young girl said in panic. Second young miss, we aren't 3-year-old kids, we know that once we send you back, we're dead for sure. Second young miss, although we're greedy, we wouldn't joke around with our lives. The 2 middle-aged men obviously didn't believe the young girl, and they walked step by step closer to the young girl, and a saber appeared in their hands. Origin energy flickered on their sabers as 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared in the sky above them. 2 9th-level void-prying stage martial artists. Duan Lingtian looked down at the 3 people beneath his feet, and his brows raised. As for that young girl, although she didn't reveal her cultivation, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out and it still detected her cultivation at the first possible moment. 7th level of the nascent soul stage. Before these 2 middle-aged men, she didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Saber lights flashed out from the sabers in the hands of both the middle-aged men, and they attacked the young girl in unison. Under the pincer attack of these 2 9th-level nascent soul stage martial artists, the young girl's expression went ghastly pale, and she even forgot to resist. HMPH. Right at this moment, a cold snort sounded out from the horizon. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, the 2 middle-aged men were directly blasted flying, and they had ghastly pale expressions as they spat out blood violently before falling to the ground in a sorry state. They struggled to stand up, and their expressions were gloomy as they looked at the violet-clothed youth that stood before the young girl. Who are you? Why are you interfering in our business? One of the middle-aged men asked in a low voice. Scram! The person that lent a hand to the young girl was naturally Duan Lingtian. Although the young girl was unrelated to Duan Lingtian, those 2 ruthless subordinates by her side aroused disgust in Duan Lingtian. So, he lent a hand. Moreover, according to his guess, the young girl ought to be someone from the surroundings of the desert. After all, it was impossible for a nascent soul-stage martial artist to rashly enter into the darkened dynasty's southern desert. Presumable, the young girl knew the way in the desert, and she knew how to walk out of the desert in the shortest amount of time. Walking out of the desert was the thing that Duan Lingtian wanted to do the most right now. When the two middle-aged men heard Duan Lingtian's stern shout, their bodies trembled, and their eyes were filled with terror. They didn't dare hesitate, and they fled away in panic. Why didn't you kill them? Right at this moment, the questioning voice of the young girl sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ear. The young girl's voice was filled with unwillingness. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the young girl. I don't have the duty to kill them for you, besides that, this is the attitude you have towards the person that saved your life. Although the young girl's appearance wasn't bad, she was still quite inferior when compared with his fiancés, Kair and Li Fei. The young girl's face froze when she heard this. Thank you, benefactor. The young girl took a deep breath and expressed her gratitude, yet a grim light was contained in the depths of her eyes. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed this. Looks like there was a reason why those two people wanted to kill young girl. I saved her, yet she's still displeased towards me in her heart. Just because I didn't kill those two subordinates. At this moment, Duan Lingtian didn't have a favorable impression towards the young girl at all. If it wasn't for him wanting the young girl to bring him out of the desert, he would have probably left since long ago. Benefactor, I hope that you can protect me to leave the southern desert. So long as I return to my clan, I'll surely give you a generous reward as thanks. The young girl looked at Duan Lingtian and spoke slowly. She was obviously afraid that the two middle-aged men would return. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded indifferently and didn't refuse. The young girl's request just happened to conform with his intentions. As for the generous reward she spoke of, he didn't care about it. When she saw Duan Lingtian agreeing so readily, a wisp of disdain flashed imperceptibly in the depths of the young girl's eyes. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian followed behind the young girl and headed forward with her. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian found out about the young girl's earlier experience from her. So it turned that the young girl was returning with her older brother from a city that was at the side of the southern desert a few days ago. They had to pass through a corner of the southern desert to return home. Unexpectedly, they'd encountered a sandstorm on the way, and it broke them up. Duan Lingtian had seen what had happened after that. Those two servants are ungrateful bastards. They eat from our Zhu clan, yet dare arouse malicious intentions towards me. They truly deserve death. When mentioning the two middle-aged men, the young girl's pretty face was filled with rage. Duan Lingtian listened silently, and his expression remained unchanged. 5 days later, under the lead of the young girl, Duan Lingtian finally arrived at the edge of the desert. An oasis appeared before Duan Lingtian. The young girl looked at Duan Lingtian and said, Duan Lingtian, our Zhu clan is in Abundance City that's up ahead. Duan Lingtian nodded. During these past few days, he'd found out about the young girl's identity. She was the daughter from a well-known family. Zhu Qing. Our Zhu clan is a famous great clan of Abundance City. This time, although you let those two servants go, but you saved me, after all. My father and older brother ought to not blame you, Zhu Qing said to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian frowned. Won't blame me, and it's only an ought to. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a cold smile. Looks like this Zhu Qing had really taken the matter of him lending a hand to save her as a matter of course. It wasn't long before a medium-sized city appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. The reason this city was medium to him was that it was bigger than many of the cities that Duan Lingtian had seen, yet it was smaller than many cities. Abundance City. Duan Lingtian followed behind Zhu Qing and walked into Abundance City. In next to no time, the two of them arrived before an estate that occupied a vast area. Duan Lingtian's gaze was sharpened with a glance. He'd seen the plaque that hung on the door to the estate. Zhu clan, second young miss. Meanwhile, the two guards outside the Zhu clan estate's door revealed a pleasantly surprised expression when they saw Zhu Qing. Second young miss, you're finally returned. The patriarch and eldest young master almost went mad with anxiety during these past 2 days, said one of the guards. Zhu Qing nodded and brought Duan Lingtian along to walk into the Zhu clan estate. At the audience hall of the Zhu clan estate, Duan Lingtian saw the Zhu clan's patriarch and the Zhu clan's eldest young master. Father. Zhu Qing threw herself into the Zhu clan patriarch's embrace, and her tears dropped down like the rain. Your daughter was almost unable to see father again. Zhu Qing emitted sobbing sounds as she spoke. The Zhu clan patriarch's face went gloomy. Qing, exactly what happened? Qing, was it this kid that bullied you? The Zhu clan's eldest young master looked at Duan Lingtian instead, and his gaze revealed a cold light as he stared at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian frowned. If he wanted to harm Zhu Qing, then at the instant he walked out of the desert and Zhu Qing had lost any value to him, he would have already killed Zhu Qing. Father, it was Wang Zhu and Li Gong. After the sandstorm broke me and big brother up, that Wang Zhu and Li Gong were at my side. They wanted to kill me and seize my spatial ring. As she finished speaking, Zhu Qing's tears dripped down to the ground. What? Those two servants were so audacious. The Zhu clan's patriarch and eldest young master had enraged expression. The Zhu clan's eldest young master's eyes even shot out ghastly cold lights. Damnable servants. So in this way, it was he who saved you. The Zhu clan patriarch looked at Duan Lingtian with a calm gaze, and it was as if he wasn't facing the person that had saved his daughter's life, but more like he was facing a stranger. Yes. Zhu Qing nodded. Did he kill that Wang Zhu and Li Gong for you? The Zhu clan eldest young master asked. Zhu Qing shook her head. 569 Chapter 570, demanding an exorbitant price. No. The Zhu clan's patriarch and eldest young master's expressions became grim in unison. After they found out about the sequence of events, they wished for nothing more than to tear two Zhu clan servants into pieces. Now, when they heard someone had let those two servants go, boundless flames of rage arose in both of their hearts. Why did you let them go? The Zhu clan's eldest young master looked at Duan Lingtian as he asked with a low voice. His words had no lack of a questioning tone. Although the Zhu clan's patriarch didn't speak, the gaze he shot at Duan Lingtian had become slightly colder. At this moment, this pair of father and son seemed to have completely forgotten that if it wasn't for Duan Lingtian lending a hand, the Zhu clan's young miss, Zhu Qing, would have already become a soul under the sabers of those two Zhu clan servants. Duan Lingtian frowned when he heard the questioning tone in the Zhu clan's eldest young master's words, and he said indifferently, "Who I let go doesn't seem to be your business, right? It's naturally none of my business if you let any other person off, but you let off two servants that wanted to kill my sister, and it's undoubtedly an act of looking down on my Zhu clan." The Zhu clan's eldest young master shouted with a grim voice. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the words of the Zhu clan's eldest young master. When he saved Zhu Qing, he seemed to have utterly not known of the existence of the Zhu clan, right? Moreover, even if he knew of the existence of the Zhu clan, then so what about it? Is it the place of the Zhu clan to dictate how he does things? Zhu clan's eldest young master, right? Duan Lingtian looked calmly at the Zhu clan's eldest young master, and he said in a clear voice, "Don't you forget that if I didn't lend a hand, this sister of yours would have already died in the desert now, yet now, you're denouncing my crimes." Duan Lingtian's words caused the expression of the Zhu clan's eldest young master to freeze, yet the rage in his eyes didn't show any signs of dispersing. "Not to mention I didn't know of the existence of your Zhu clan before this, even if I did, then so what if I look down on your Zhu clan?" Duan Lingtian continued. As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian has an expression of ridicule. Could it be that a clan that treats a benefactor like this wants others to respect them? Laughable. Laughable. Duan Lingtian's words caused the Zhu clan's patriarch and the others to be dumbstruck. You're courting death. The Zhu clan's eldest young master was the first to recover from his shock. The origin energy on his body skyrocketed, and his imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow as he charged towards Duan Lingtian. In the sky, 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Third level of the void-prying stage. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth revealed a wisp of disdain. Enough. It was at this moment that an indifferent voice sounded out. It was the Zhu clan's patriarch that had stopped his son. "He's right. He saved your sister's life, after all, and our Zhu clan can't treat a benefactor like this." Although the Zhu clan's patriarch said this, the gaze he shot at Duan Lingtian was icy cold and indifferent to the extreme, and he had an overbearing expression. HMPH. The Zhu clan's eldest young master snorted coldly, and then he glared at Duan Lingtian. "Count yourself lucky. I thank you for saving my daughter's life." The Zhu clan's patriarch nodded to Duan Lingtian, and then he said indifferently, "But we still have some business to attend to. I'm afraid we can't entertain you any longer, please show yourself out." Duan Lingtian started laughing. Initially, he'd indeed intended to turn around and leave. But the attitude of the Zhu clan father and son had caused him to feel extreme displeasure. Saving a person, yet it caused a problem for me. If the Zhu clan's patriarch had politely asked him to leave, he wouldn't say a single word and leave, and he'd absolutely not stay for a single moment longer. After all, he'd never thought of getting any benefit from the Zhu clan. But the Zhu clan's current attitude caused him to feel that if he didn't take some benefits from them, then it would seem to be unworthy of the Zhu clan's warm reception. Zhu clan's young miss. Duan Lingtian looked at Zhu Qing, who stood nearby with a cold and indifferent expression, and he grinned. If memory serves, after I saved you that day, you'd once promised me that after I send you back to the Zhu clan, you'd surely give me a generous reward. Now, I've sent you home, shouldn't you fulfill your promise and give me a generous reward? Duan Lingtian spoke word by word. I presume that Zhu clan's young miss wouldn't go back on her promise, right? You, Zhu Qing's pretty face flushed red, yet she was at a loss for words. She seemed to have indeed promised this, yet all this was only the polite words she'd spoken at that time. She had an extremely complicated feeling towards the benefactor that let off the two servants that wanted to kill her, and she'd never thought of generously rewarding this benefactor. Now, the young man had raised this matter himself, and it caused her to be both angry and irritated. There's actually such a thick-skinned person in this world. Duan Lingtian's words caused the faces of the Zhu clan's patriarch and eldest young master to sink. Kid, you arbitrarily let off those two filthy servants that wanted to kill my sister, yet you still want my Zhu clan to generously reward you. The Zhu clan's eldest young master spoke with a low voice. His tone contained explosive rage. Zhu clan eldest young master, your words are mistake. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Zhu clan eldest young master, think about it properly, saving your sister is already an extremely great favor to your Zhu clan. As for if I killed those two people or not, that isn't my duty. Of course, if your Zhu clan feels that the life of your young miss isn't worth anything and don't reward me generously, it's fine as well. I'll leave right away. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the Zhu clan's patriarch and eldest young master, and the corners of his mouth curled into a ridiculing smile as he turned around and intended to leave. Wait, right at this moment, the Zhu clan's patriarch had a gloomy expression as he stopped Duan Lingtian. Zhu clan's patriarch, is there anything you need? Duan Lingtian turned around and asked indifferently. Although my Zhu clan isn't a famous clan in the Darken dynasty, it isn't a clan that doesn't know how to repay another's kindness. Speak, how do you want my Zhu clan to thank you? The Zhu clan's patriarch spoke word by word with a low voice. Zhu clan's patriarch, you're straightforward as expected. Duan Lingtian smiled. How about this? I won't be greedy, just give me 100 million gold. Duan Lingtian's voice entered the ears of the three Zhu clan members, causing them to seem as if they were struck by lightning, and they were stunned on the spot. 100 million gold, he said he won't be greedy. Kid, don't push your luck. The Zhu clan's eldest young master shouted out angrily. Duan Lingtian paid no attention to the Zhu clan's eldest young master. He looked at the Zhu clan's patriarch instead and smiled lightly. What, Patriarch Zhu, you think your daughter's life isn't worth 100 million gold? Never mind, since the Zhu clan's young miss is so cheap in your eyes, Patriarch Zhu, then take it as I never said anything. Duan Lingtian shook his head, and then he casually waved his hand before walking out. The Zhu clan's patriarch's expression flickered between a livid and ashen expression. Zhu Qing stood at the side with an extremely unsightly expression. Never had she imagined that the violet-clothed young man that saved her would actually demand such an exorbitant price. 100 million gold. Although it wouldn't be to the extent of injuring the Zhu clan greatly, it was still an extremely large amount of wealth that was sufficient to make their hearts ache. Wait, finally, the Zhu clan's patriarch spoke out with an extremely low and deep voice. Father. The Zhu clan eldest young master went gloomy. Although this kid saved Zhu Qing, he let go those two damnable slaves, it at most is considered as his merits offset his faults. There's no need for you to give him so much money. Merits offset faults. At the instant that the Zhu clan's patriarch spoke out, Duan Lingtian had stopped moving, and now that he heard the words of the Zhu clan's eldest young master, his face instantly seemed to be covered in a layer of ice. Now, he suddenly felt that his actions earlier might have been slight wishful thinking of his own. At that time, even if he watched idly by as Zhu Qing was killed, it wouldn't affect him in the slightest. It wasn't only Zhu Qing that he could rely on to leave the desert. So long as he coerced those two Zhu clan servants, they would similarly bring him out of the desert. Enough, If it wasn't for him, your sister would have died long ago. The Zhou clan's patriarch raised his hand to stop his son, and then he withdrew a thick stack of gold bills from his spatial ring. This is 100 million gold, our Zhou clan doesn't owe you anything from today onwards. Thank you, Patriarch Zhou. The ice of Duan Lingtian's face instantly melted when he saw the gold passed over by the Zhou clan's patriarch, and he bluntly received it and put it away in the spatial ring. This caused the nearby Zhou clan's eldest young master to gnash his teeth with hatred, whereas, Zhou Qing's pretty face was unsightly to the extreme as well. That was 100 million gold. Eldest young master and young miss of the Zhou clan, goodbye. Before Duan Lingtian left, he intentionally bid his farewells to the two people before walking off with large strides. For a time, only the three Zhou clan members who each had thoughts of their own in their hearts remained on the spot. After Duan Lingtian left the Zhou clan, he breathed out a breath of air as his face revealed a brilliant smile. I truly never imagined that just lifting a finger allowed me to earn 100 million gold. I wonder where exactly in the Darkened Dynasty is this abundant city. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he started to ask for information all around the city. In the end, he finally confirmed that the abundant city was situated at the southwest area of the Darkened Dynasty, and it was neighboring to the southern desert. After Little Gold and I entered the Darkened Dynasty, we entered the southern area of the Darkened Dynasty. Looks like that sandstorm forcefully blew me to the southwest area. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Although the Darkstone Empire has the map of the Darkened Dynasty, but it isn't very detailed, this place is within the Darkened Dynasty, and I ought to be able to buy a more reliable map. After searching for some time, Duan Lingtian finally bought a map of the Darkened Dynasty from a bookshop in Abundant City. The map even contained the symbol of the Abundant City that he was in now. In the entire territory of the Darkened Dynasty, the Abundant City was only an existence that was smaller than an ant. My destination this time is the most luxurious trade city of the Darkened Dynasty, Milky Way City. This is something that Little Gold knows as well. Perhaps I'll be able to encounter Little Gold there. Duan Lingtian put away the map in his hand and intended to leave Abundant City to head towards Milky Way City. But he hadn't even walked out of the city gate when Duan Lingtian noticed that he was being followed. Zhou clan members. Duan Lingtian frowned. Besides the Zhou clan, he couldn't think of anyone that would want to target him. They probably aren't sent over by the Zhou clan's patriarch. If the Zhou clan's patriarch wanted to deal with me, he would have made a move in the Zhou clan estate earlier, and it would have been impossible for him to give me the 100 million gold. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. It ought to be that Zhou clan's eldest young master, or perhaps the Zhou clan's young miss, Zhou Qing, that sent them. The possibility that it's the Zhou clan's eldest young master is greater. 570 Chapter 571, Who can afford to play? Duan Lingtian paid no attention to the people that followed behind him, and he directly headed out of the city. In next to no time, he'd left the city, and he only just soared into the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 exceedingly swift howls of the wind sounded out from behind Duan Lingtian. The 3 figures stood in the sky and were divided into a triangular position as they surrounded Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised by the appearance of the 3 people, and his gaze flashed past the 3 of them. These were 3 middle-aged men that stared at him with icy cold gazes. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out, and the cultivations of the 3 people were unable to hide from him. 2 4th-level void-prying stage martial artists, and 1 3rd-level void-prying stage martial artist. They didn't pose that slightest threat to Duan Lingtian. Your eldest young master sent all of you. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently, and at practically this instant, Duan Lingtian's gaze that never left these 3 people observed the minute changes in their expressions. In the end, Duan Lingtian noticed an inkling. At almost the exact same instant he spoke, the expressions of the 3 people had slight changes. Looks like I was right. Duan Lingtian's gaze gradually went cold. But, your Zhou clan's patriarch didn't say anything, yet all of you have impatiently made a move against me with only the order from your Zhou clan's eldest young master. Aren't all of you afraid that your Zhou clan's patriarch would blame you? After we kill you, the dead can't bear witness. One of the 4th-level void-prying stage martial artists spoke word by word with a voice that was cold like ice. Kill. The other 4th-level void-prying stage martial artist shouted out with a grim voice, and he pounced towards Duan Lingtian. Instantly, the other 2 of them attacked out at the same time. 3 people divided into 3 directions had launched an attack at Duan Lingtian at the same time. 3 strands of raging origin energy combined with 3 spirit weapons and elementary force approached menacingly, sweeping towards Duan Lingtian, and it seemed as if they wanted to kill Duan Lingtian with a single strike. HMPH. Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly went cold. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian made a move. Sword drawing arts. The violet myrtle flexible sword had only just arrived in Duan Lingtian's hand when it transformed into a sword light that was swift to the extreme as it flashed out. 2 strands of fresh blood shot out violently. The origin energy on the bodies of the 2 4th-level void-prying stage martial artists dispersed completely as they crashed to the ground. Bang, bang, because they fell from a low position in the sky, Duan Lingtian and the remaining 3rd-level void-prying stage martial artist were able to hear the sound of the 2 corpses dropping to the ground. The expression of the 3rd-level void-prying stage martial artist went completely ghastly pale to the extreme at the instant his 2 4th-level void-prying stage companions were killed, and his expression was filled with despair. Presently, he put away the spirit weapon in his hand and stood in the sky with a shivering figure. You, he looked at Duan Lingtian as he shuddered in terror. Earlier, although he didn't see how many ancient mammoth silhouettes were above Duan Lingtian clearly, but he'd clearly seen that enormous silhouette that circled down. Ancient horned dragon silhouette. At this moment, his heart was filled with coldness. The young man was able to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth to condense an ancient horned dragon silhouette, and the young man's strength could be easily imagined. The young man was at least at the 6th level of the void-prying stage, and it was even possible that he was at the 7th level of the void-prying stage. A 6th-level void-prying stage martial artist was able to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth to develop an ancient horned dragon silhouette when utilizing a spirit weapon, where a 7th-level void-prying stage martial artist didn't have to utilize a spirit weapon to exert the strength of an ancient horned dragon. 6th-level void-prying stage. 7th-level void-prying stage. Even the strongest in their Zhu clan, the Grand Elder, had a cultivation that was only at the 7th level of the void-prying stage. Do you still want to continue? Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man before him. No, the middle-aged man hurriedly waved his hand when he heard this. What a joke! Although the young man looked to be young, the young man's strength was something that was difficult for him to reach. If the young man willed it, he would have died long ago. Speak of the person who's pulling the strings, and then scram. Duan Lingtian's sword-shaped brows tilted up. Although he'd already guessed that the Zhu clan's eldest young master was the person pulling the strings, he still wanted to confirm it. It's the eldest young master, it's the eldest young master. The middle-aged man spoke hurriedly. After he finished speaking, he heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Duan Lingtian's figure flash to vanish before his eyes. I can't stay in the Zhu clan any longer, the middle-aged man sighed as he decided in his heart. In the next moment, the middle-aged man transformed into a flowing light that shot out of the city before concealing itself high in the clouds and vanishing. Zhu clan estate. Whoosh. As if a gust of wind blew by, a violet-clothed figure had appeared out of thin air. Zhu clan's eldest young master. The owner of the violet-colored figure was precisely Duan Lingtian who had returned. Presently, Duan Lingtian looked down at the Zhu clan estate beneath his face and spoke with a clear and cold voice. His voice contained origin energy and spread out throughout the entire Zhu clan estate. Instantly, the entire Zhu clan was stirred. Someone is looking for the eldest young master. He has come with bad intentions. Many Zhu clan members looked up into the sky. It's him. Why has he come back again? The Zhu clan's patriarch was silently drinking tea in the courtyard when he heard this familiar voice, and his face sank as he stepped up into the sky. He hasn't died. In the Zhu clan's martial practice arena, the Zhu clan's eldest young master's face sank as he soared into the sky. Subsequently, another 3 figures soared into the sky. Who's making noise in my Zhu clan? An aged figure was the first to arrive high above in the sky where Duan Lingtian was, and his figure hadn't arrived yet, but his voice had already sounded out. Duan Lingtian looked over when he heard the voice. An old man with white brows was the first to appear before him. 7th level of the void-prying stage. His spiritual force detected the old man's cultivation at the first possible moment. Looks like this person ought to be the strongest in the Zhu clan, the Grand Elder. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. A few days ago, on the way when he was led towards Abundance City by Zhu Qing had proudly commended her Zhu clan many times. Amongst these, she'd mentioned that the strongest person in the Zhu clan, the Grand Elder, was in existence at the 7th level of the void-prying stage. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder was slightly dazed when he looked at Duan Lingtian. He obviously never imagined that the person who came to provoke the Zhu clan would be such a young man. Young man, do you know that your actions are already provoking the dignity of my Zhu clan? The Zhu clan's Grand Elder's voice was like muffled thunder, and slight rage was contained within. Zhu clan's dignity. Duan Lingtian started laughing. Your Zhu clan has dignity to speak about. Truly laughable. Audacious. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder's voice and another voice sounded out at almost the exact same time. Subsequently, the Zhu clan's patriarch was the second person to make an appearance, and he stood shoulder to shoulder with the Grand Elder as he glared angrily at Duan Lingtian. I said before that my Zhu clan doesn't owe you anything anymore. Now, what exactly do you desire by publicly provoking my Zhu clan? The Zhu clan's Grand Elder frowned. Obviously, he never expected that the Zhu clan's patriarch knew this young man. What I desire? Duan Lingtian smiled as his eyes narrowed. Patriarch Zhu, your Zhu clan had indeed not owed me anything anymore, but that son of yours seems to not think in this way. The Zhu clan's patriarch went grim when he heard this. What do you mean by this? Patriarch, Grand Elder. Right at this moment, another two figures soared into the sky to stand by the side of the Grand Elder and Patriarch of the Zhu clan. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force swept out. The people that arrived now were two old men, and their cultivations were similar to the Zhu clan patriarch. They were both at the 6th level of the void prying stage, and they were probably Zhu clan elders. What do I mean? Duan Lingtian's gaze abruptly turned to converge onto the final figure that slowly soared into the sky. I'm afraid Patriarch Zhu has to ask your precious son about this. Ask him what? Good deed, he has gone. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he intentionally emphasized the words, good deed. Whoosh. The Zhu clan's eldest young master was the last to make an appearance. He looked at Duan Lingtian as soon as he made an appearance, and he glared angrily. Kid, you took my Zhu clan's 100 million gold, yet you still dare behave rudely at my Zhu clan. Looks like you really think your life is too long. 100 million gold. The Zhu clan eldest young master's words had caused all the three Zhu clan elders including the Grand Elder so be stunned. Patriarch, what exactly is going on? The three of them asked the Zhu clan's patriarch. The Zhu clan's patriarch sighed and spoke of the sequence of events. The three of them came to a sudden understanding. Young man, since my Zhu clan doesn't owe you anything anymore, why are you still endlessly making trouble for my Zhu clan? The Zhu clan Grand Elder's brows raised as he emitted a dignified bearing. Endlessly making trouble? Duan Lingtian laughed in ridicule, and then he looked towards the Zhu clan's eldest young master. Who exactly is endlessly making trouble is something all of you ought to ask this Zhu clan's eldest young master. Duan Lingtian words successfully moved the attention of the four higher-ups of the Zhu clan. Including the Zhu clan's patriarch, 4 sets of gazes had shot onto the Zhu clan's eldest young master in unison. Kid, what do you mean by this? The Zhu clan's eldest young master's face sank as he asked with a shout. But in his heart, he felt slightly uncomfortable. Could it be that he has already found out about me sending people to kill him? Wait, unless they failed, otherwise, it's impossible for him to know. The Zhu clan's eldest young master was extremely confident towards the 3 people he sent, and he didn't think that the violet-clothed young man was able to kill those 3 people. So, he chose to feign ignorance. What do I mean? Duan Lingtian's face seemed to be covered in a layer of thin ice. Zhu clan eldest young master, I'd taken the 100 million gold from Patriarch Zhu and the Zhu clan and I were even. But you actually sent out 2 4th-level void prying stage martial artists and 1 3rd-level void prying stage martial artist with intent to kill me when I left. Do you really think I'm easily bullied? As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian's voice was icy cold to the extreme, and it seemed as if it sounded out from an icy pit. As soon as Duan Lingtian said this, the expression of the 5 members of the Zhu clan went gloomy. Especially the Zhu clan's eldest young master, his pupils constricted as his mood surged. No, impossible, how could he possibly know? Could it be that they failed? A bad premonition arose in the Zhu clan's eldest young master's heart. What did you do to the 3 revered elders of my Zhu clan? The Zhu clan's eldest young master spoke in a low and deep voice as he asked with a shout. They followed your orders and wanted to kill me, yet now, I'm standing all fine and well here. How do you think they are now? Duan Lingtian laughed in disdain as he spoke incisively. You killed them. The Zhu clan's eldest young master's expression became gloomy. What? You can send them to kill me, yet I can't kill them. Duan Lingtian sneered. Originally, it didn't matter that all of you were ungrateful after I saved your Zhu clan's young miss, but you actually wanted to kill me and wanted to stir up trouble, then I'll accompany you and play this game. Let's see if you can afford to play, or I can. 571 Chapter 572, Complete Annihilation. Kid, do you think our Zhu clan's 100 million gold is so easy to take away? When the Zhu clan's eldest young master saw that what he did was exposed, he directly stopped hiding it and shed all pretenses. But, you actually dared kill 3 revered elders of my Zhu clan, you're dead. At almost the exact same instant he finished speaking, the origin energy on the body of the Zhu clan's eldest young master skyrocketed, whereas, the origin energy on the bodies of the 4 Zhu clan higher-ups became restless as their imposing auras shot into the sky like rainbows. What, your Zhu clan doesn't feel that you're in the wrong? Duan Lingtian looked at the Zhu clan's patriarch, the Grand Elder, and the 2 elders as he spoke with a low voice. In the wrong, the Zhu clan's patriarch's face was extremely gloomy, and his gaze was icy cold to the extreme. Perhaps, my son has indeed gone too far, but he didn't succeed in the end. You have instead killed 3 revered elders of my Zhu clan. So, you must die today. The origin energy on the Zhu clan's patriarch raged like fire, and there were even strands of fiery red energy leaping about within it. In the sky above him, 8,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form, and another 500 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared out of thin air beside them. 6th level void crying stage. Half-step advanced fire force. He didn't succeed. What a notion. Duan Lingtian laughed instead from extreme anger. Today, if his strength was inferior to those 3 Zhu clan revered elders, then he would have already been killed. But now, the Zhu clan's patriarch actually dismissed this matter so lightly. Of course, Duan Lingtian knew that the Zhu clan's patriarch and Grand Elders group of 3, had more of an intention to protect the Zhu clan's eldest young master now. You must pay with your blood for killing members of my Zhu clan, leave your life behind today. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder's white brows raised as he glared angrily at Duan Lingtian and spoke with a low voice. Leave my life behind. Duan Lingtian started laughing brilliantly. Go on and laugh, you're bound to only be able to laugh at this moment for your entire lifetime. The Zhu clan's eldest young master sneered. Duan Lingtian restrained the smile on his face in an instant, then his gaze descended onto the 4 Zhu clan higher-ups. I came to you Zhu clan today to only get even with your Zhu clan's eldest young master. Do all of you really want to get involved in this matter? Have all of you thought it through? Sometimes, a single choice is sufficient to ruin your entire lives. Duan Lingtian's voice was cold like ice, and his words had no lack of a warning intention. Although the 4 Zhu clan's higher-ups' actions of blindly protecting the eldest young master caused him to feel the test, he still gave them a chance. As for if these 4 people valued this chance, it wasn't something he was able to intervene in. Duan Lingtian's words caused the expressions of the Zhu clan higher-ups to be gloomy. Kid, don't be arrogant. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder was the first to return to his senses, and then his figure flashed out like the wind to pounce towards Duan Lingtian. In his hand, a narrow saber appeared out of thin air, then his origin energy fused into it, and it carried along strands of azure energy as it slashed towards Duan Lingtian with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. He seemed as if he wanted to slash Duan Lingtian into 2. In the sky above him, an ancient horned dragon silhouette coiled down before sweeping out with him. Behind the ancient horned dragon silhouette was another 4,000 plus ancient mammoth silhouettes following it. It was as if they were moving forward as they attended to the Supreme Emperor. 7th level void crying stage. Grade 6 Spirit Saber. Half-step advanced wind force. This was the strength of the Zhu clan's Grand Elder. Since all of you don't value this chance, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Duan Lingtian's voice was calm yet was filled with bloody killing intent. As soon as he finished speaking, a dim light started to flash into appearance in the depths of Duan Lingtian's eyes. Thousand illusion. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force fused into his soul brand and he executed the soul skill that belonged exclusively to him. An illusory space was instantly constructed and enveloped the Zhu clan's Grand Elder. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder had a cultivation at the 7th level of the void crying stage. However, he wasn't an inscription master, nor had he comprehended advanced force. So, the soul skill, thousand illusions, that Duan Ling Tian executed with his spiritual force at the 7th level of the void prying stage was something that the Zhu clan's Grand Elder was utterly unable to withstand. Instantly, the Zhu clan's Grand Elder was sealed within the illusory space, and he was like a headless fly that moved about randomly. Suddenly, the Zhu clan's Grand Elder turned around abruptly, and his gaze stared fixedly at the Zhu clan's eldest young master. That icy cold gaze caused the Zhu clan's eldest young master to feel panicked. Grand Elder, he felt the killing intent in the old man's eyes, and his body couldn't refrain from trembling. Suddenly, the Zhu clan's Grand Elder attacked. He slashed his saber that carried the might to split mountains down onto the Zhu clan's eldest young master. Grand Elder. The Zhu clan's patriarch's face went pale as he flashed out. He wanted to save the eldest young master, yet he was too late. The Zhu clan's eldest young master's eyes stared wide open as he was slashed into 2 halves by the Zhu clan's Grand Elder. Blood sprayed into the air as the corpse that was slashed into 2 halves fell down to the ground. Instantly, a wave of terrified exclaims of the Zhu clan disciples sounded out in the Zhu clan estate. Obviously, they were terrified by the Zhu clan eldest young master's corpse. Grand Elder, why did you kill my son? High above in the sky, the Zhu clan's patriarch's eyes were crimson red as he glared angrily at the Zhu clan Grand Elder. On the other side, the 2 Zhu clan elders had stunned expression as they looked at the Grand Elder. At this moment, they seemed to have forgotten of Duan Ling Tian's existence, whereas Duan Ling Tian was happy to watch the scene. HMPH. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth curled into an evil arc. Only he knew what had happened earlier. Earlier, within the illusory space that he'd constructed, he'd merged the place where he stood in the illusory space with the place the Zhu clan's eldest young master stood outside the illusory space. So, when the Zhu clan's Grand Elder killed him in the illusory space, it was equivalent to the Zhu clan's Grand Elder killing the Zhu clan's eldest young master outside the illusory space. HMPH. You can't even withstand a single strike of mine, yet you dare provoke our Zhu clan. Utterly courting death. Meanwhile, the Zhu clan's Grand Elder grunted coldly, and he put away the spirit saber in his hand. Obviously, he was still within the illusory space constructed by Duan Ling Tian's 1,000 illusions, and he thought that the person he killed was Duan Ling Tian. This scene caused the Zhu clan's patriarch, who was extremely infuriated, to be dumbstruck. An absurd thought arose in his heart. Grand Elder killed the wrong person. The other 2 Zhu clan elders looked at each other and didn't dare believe that all this was real. The show ought to begin. With a command in his heart, Duan Ling Tian instantly withdrew his 1,000 illusions. The illusory space shattered into bit and the Zhu clan's Grand Elder instantly came back to his senses. But when he saw Duan Ling Tian standing before him completely unharmed, he had a shocked expression as if he'd seen a ghost. How can you have not died? Earlier, I obviously have already. Grand Elder Zhu. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but laugh. You wouldn't be thinking that the person that was killed by you earlier was me, right? Duan Ling Tian's words caused the Zhu clan's Grand Elder's face to go gloomy. Who was it, if it wasn't you? Look around and see who's gone. The corners of Duan Ling Tian's mouth lightly curled into an arc, and the evil arc appeared once more. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder looked around into the surroundings, and he noticed that only the patriarch and the 2 elders remained. The eldest young master that originally stood within them had vanished without a trace. Most importantly, he noticed that the patriarch's expression was extremely unsightly, and the patriarch's eyes were suffused with a crimson-red color. Could it be? His heart trembled as he spoke with a trembling voice. I killed Chang. The Zhu clan's eldest young master was called Zhu Chang. Since a young age, the Grand Elder had taken Zhu Chang as his own grandson. But now, Zhu Chang had actually died at his hands. No. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder's eyes was crimson red as he ceaselessly shook his head. In the end, he looked at Duan Ling Tian and roared. It's surely because of you, it's surely because of you. Although he didn't know what had happened earlier, the Grand Elder subconsciously firmly believed that what happened earlier was related to this violet-clothed young man. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder attacked Duan Ling Tian once more, and his imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow. HMPH. Duan Ling Tian revealed an expression of disdain. 1,000 illusion. Duan Ling Tian executed his soul skill once more. The illusory space appeared once more and enveloped the Zhu clan's Grand Elder within it. In the next moment, Zhu clan's Grand Elder seemed as if he was possessed once again, and he swung his saber to slash towards the Patriarch and two elders. At the beginning, the Zhu clan's Patriarch's group of 3 were barely able to withstand the attacks of the Grand Elder. Gradually, they lacked the strength to continue. The Zhu clan's Grand Elder slashed down to kill one of the Zhu clan elders. Elder Liang, the Patriarch and the other elder went gloomy. What exactly have you done? Now, the Zhu clan's Patriarch had realized as well that the bizarre happenings before his eyes was related to Duan Lingtian, and he roared with a grim voice. Patriarch Zhu, don't say that I didn't warn you. I told you, sometimes, a choice is sufficient to ruin your entire life. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. But in the eyes of the Zhu clan Patriarch, Duan Lingtian's smile was like the smile of a devil. The Grand Elder swung down his saber once more and killed the other elder as well. Grand Elder, it's me. Only the Zhu clan Patriarch remained, and he roared endlessly in an effort to stop the Grand Elder. But the Zhu clan Grand Elder was currently within the illusory space that was created by Duan Lingtian's 1000 illusion. He seemed as if he was possessed, and it was utterly impossible for him to be awakened. In the end, the Zhu clan's Patriarch followed in the footsteps of the 2 Zhu clan elders. I'll give you a swift death. Duan Lingtian's figure flashed to arrive behind the Grand Elder. Swish, he pointed out with his finger and took the life of the Zhu clan's Grand Elder. The Zhu clan's eldest young master and all the 4 higher-ups of the Zhu clan had died. Spatial ring. Duan Lingtian remembered after a short moment that he hadn't gathered the spatial rings of the Zhu clan members, and he instantly descended from the sky. The entire martial practice arena was covered in blood. Amongst the 5 corpses, only one was a complete corpse. In the surroundings of the martial practice arena, the crowd of Zhu clan disciples had ghastly pale faces, and some who had weak psychological endurance almost vomited. What exactly happened? Why have the Patriarch, the Grand Elder, and the others been killed? The Zhu clan disciples completely didn't know what had happened. There's someone in the sky. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in shock. Subsequently, all the Zhu clan disciples saw a violet-colored figure descend from the sky and stand in the martial practice arena. This was a violet-clothed young man with graceful bearing. But the violet-clothed young man's current actions didn't conform to his bearing in the slightest. The violet-clothed young man was putting away the spatial rings of the Zhu clan's deceased Patriarch and the others in a practiced manner. 572 Chapter 573, Pavilion Master. He killed the Patriarch, the Grand Elder, and the others. The Zhu clan disciples were stunned when they saw Duan Lingtian, and they only recovered from their shock when Duan Lingtian's figure flashed and vanished before their eyes. Such a young man actually possesses the strength to kill the Patriarch and the others. Who exactly is he? He's surely a member of those great powers. I wonder how the Patriarch and the others offended him. Fortunately, he didn't have the intention to make a move against our Zhu clan, otherwise, our Zhu clan would surely be annihilated. The Zhu clan disciples discussed animatedly, and many of them even felt a slight lingering fear in their hearts. They felt fortunate that they'd escaped this calamity. Duan Lingtian left the Zhu clan and left Abundance City. To him, the incident that occurred in Abundance City was only a small matter that wasn't worth mentioning. It wasn't long before he tossed it to the back of his head. Milky Way City was the most flourishing trade city in the Darkin Dynasty, and it was also the final destination of Duan Lingtian when he came to the Darkin Dynasty. My time is limited, and I'm unable to head over to the Darkin Dynasty's capital. If I'm unable to find the ageless route in the Darkin Dynasty's Milky Way City and the Darkstone Empire's flourishing Summer City, then I can only wait for when I advance in the Darkstone Empire and head over to the Darkin Dynasty's capital to continue searching. Duan Lingtian headed all the way to Milky Way City according to the map in his possession. Along the way, he'd found a forest with dense amounts of demon beasts to tame a 7th-level void-prying stage flying beast with his sole skill to carry him. Although the speed of this demon beast was slower to the little gold mouse, it wasn't much inferior. Duan Lingtian calmed his heart and cultivated while sitting cross-legged on the back of the demon beast. In his cultivating, Duan Lingtian forgot the time, and he only awoke from his cultivating when the demon beast woke him up. I'm still a small distance away from the 6th level of the void-prying stage. Presently, another 2 months had passed. Duan Lingtian's cultivation had obtained swift improvement and was approaching the 6th level of the void-prying stage already. That's Milky Way City. Duan Lingtian sat on the back of the demon beast and was brought plunging downwards, and a city appeared in his eyes. This city was absolutely the largest city that Duan Lingtian had seen in this world. In terms of the area it occupied, even the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City and flourishing Summer City combined together wasn't even half of the size of this city. After he came near to the city, Duan Lingtian was able to see numerous swift figures either flashing past from high above in the air or dashing past on the ground, and they ceaselessly gushed into the Milky Way city before him. There were both human martial artists and demon beasts amongst these figures. The latter were all ridden by human martial artists. Duan Lingtian slowly stood up, and he stood on the demon beast while allowing it to bring him into the city. In the Milky Way city, people that were conspicuous like Duan Lingtian were too innumerable to be counted. So Duan Lingtian's arrival didn't draw the attention of others. I should first look for the treasure-gathering pavilion to issue a task. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Subsequently, he descended down from the sky and stopped a middle-aged man that passed by, and then he asked politely. "Big brother, may I ask?" "Don't bother me, I have an important matter to attend to." The middle-aged man spoke impatiently. "Big brother, I want to ask where the treasure-gathering pavilion." Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, and a gold bill with a 10,000 denomination appeared out of thin air in his hand. "Walk ahead, then turn right when you arrive at the end, and the treasure-gathering pavilion is there." A tremendous change occurred in the middle-aged man's attitude after he received the gold bill, and then he left. He's truly realistic. Duan Lingtian shook his head and soared up into the sky once again to stand onto the back of the demon beast before urging it to head forward. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian arrived at the end of the road. After he turned right, Duan Lingtian saw the large plaque with gold words on the faraway standalone building. Treasure Gathering Pavilion. Duan Lingtian had only just arrived at the door to the Treasure Gathering Pavilion when an attendant moved over to greet him. "Guest, please come inside." One of the attendants respectfully greeted Duan Lingtian into the pavilion. On the way, the attendant asked Duan Lingtian about his reason for arrival. When he found out Duan Lingtian came here to offer a reward for a task, he didn't dare dally and brought Duan Lingtian to the third floor. "Guest, may I know what you want to offer a reward for? And what will you use as a reward?" The old man behind the counter looked at Duan Lingtian with an expressionless face. Ageless root. After Duan Lingtian described the characteristics of the ageless root like he did in the flourishing Summer City, he specially drew a picture of the ageless root. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian withdrew a grade 4 spirit sword and passed it to the old man. The old man seemed rather suspicious as he held the grade 4 spirit sword in his hand. Whoosh! Along with origin energy gushing out from the old man's hand, beside the two ancient dragon silhouettes in the sky above him, another one ancient horned dragon and 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. First level of the void initiation stage. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. When he entered, he didn't use his spiritual force to detect the old man's cultivation. Now, it had shocked him when he saw the old man reveal a cultivation at the first level of the void initiation stage. As expected of the treasure-gathering pavilion in the most flourishing city of Darken Dynasty. An old man that was merely in charge of registering behind the counter was in existence at the void initiation stage. Duan Lingtian was shocked, yet the old man was even more shocked than him. An amplification of 60%. The old man's stiff face revealed a shocked expression, and bright lights flickered in his muddy eyes. The old man looked over and Duan Lingtian lightly nodded. "Senior, please register it for me." The old man nodded and spoke in a slight dull manner. "A grade 4 spirit weapon can waive the administration fee. 3 months later, no matter if the thing you require is found, you can rely on this jade ornament half to exchange for your spirit weapon." As he finished speaking, the old man passed a half of a jade ornament to Duan Lingtian. The rules here was exactly the same to the treasure-gathering pavilion in the Darkstone Empire's flourishing Summer City. A grade 4 spirit sword that provides an amplification of 60%. The attendant that brought Duan Lingtian in was completely stunned on the spot, and he assumed a petrified state. According to his knowledge, there seemed to not be a single grade 4 weapons craftsman in the Darken Dynasty that was able to refine a grade 4 spirit sword with a 60% amplification. Because of this, the value of this grade 4 spirit sword could be easily imagined. "Thank you, senior." Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and nodded to the old man, and then he urged the demon beast and left. A grade 4 spirit weapon that provides a 60% amplification, could it be that he's related to that person? Wait, even that person exhausted a lifetime of effort and was only able to refine 2 grade 4 spirit weapons with a 59% amplification, yet none of them were grade 4 spirit weapons with a 60% amplification. The thought that had just emerged in the old man's heart was shattered by himself. In his eyes, the violet figure that moved into the distance was that much more mysterious. You, quickly take this picture to the main hall on the first floor and stick it on the bulletin board. Then, announce that no matter who it is, so long as they're able to produce the medicinal material on the picture, they'll be able to obtain a grade 4 spirit sword that provides a 60% amplification. The old man looked at the attendant and spoke with a serious expression. Yes, the attendant left after replying. The old man left the counter as well, and he headed towards the stairs that lead to the higher floors. After a short moment, he arrived before a room on the 5th floor. Pavilion Master. The old man stood outside as he bowed. The treasure-gathering pavilion was a business under a formidable power of the Darkin dynasty. It was distributed all over the Darkin dynasty. Even if it was the various empires under the Darkin dynasty, all of them had branches of the treasure-gathering pavilion. Every branch pavilion had a pavilion master, and Milky Way City was no exception. Not only that, because Milky Way City was the most flourishing trade city in the Darkin dynasty, the pavilion master of the Milky Way City branch was even an expert with shocking strength, and no one knew how strong this pavilion master was. However, although the Milky Way City's treasure-gathering pavilion branch had numerous treasures, there was rarely anyone that dared look for trouble with it, and the deterrent force of the pavilion master could be seen from this. Enter. In the room, a sonorous voice sounded out. Along with the old man entering, a middle-aged man appeared within the old man's field of vision, and he had his back towards the old man. Do you need something? The middle-aged man turned around, his gaze like lightning, and he stared at the old man as he asked. Pavilion Master, look at this. Although just from appearance, the old man was enough to be the middle-aged man's father, when he faced the middle-aged man, he was instead respectful and reverent and didn't dare be disrespectful in the slightest. As he spoke, a sword appeared in his hand, a spirit sword. This is. The middle-aged man raised his hand, and he didn't seem to make any further movement, yet the spirit sword in the old man's hand instantly flew out to firmly descend in his hand. It was just like it was dragged over by a shapeless force. If Duan Lingtian was here and saw this scene, he would surely be extremely shocked. Because, what the middle-aged man used now was an ability of taking something from a distance. Taking something from a distance seemed to be simple, yet it was actually extremely difficult. If it wasn't a martial artist with a formidable strength, it was utterly impossible to achieve this. But when faced with the middle-aged man taking the spirit sword from his hand from a distance, the old man seemed to not be shocked in the slightest, and it was as if he was accustomed to it. The middle-aged man's gaze descended onto the spirit sword on his hand. After a short while, his eyes abruptly squinted. What a profound weapons refinement technique! This grade 4 spirit sword is at least able to amplify strength by 59%. Could it be that it's a masterpiece of that old fellow? As he finished speaking, the middle-aged man muttered. The old man who stood respectfully at the side wasn't surprised that the middle-aged man was able to see how extraordinary the spirit sword was by just looking at it. Because, he knew that the pavilion master was a grade 4 weapons craftsman. And he was one of the only 5 grade 4 weapons craftsmen that were known of in the Darkin dynasty. Wait, in next to no time, the middle-aged man shook his head and muttered. I've seen both of the top grade 4 spirit weapons, that old fellow refined, and there wasn't a spirit sword amongst them. Could it be that this is his recent work? As he finished muttering, the middle-aged man looked at the old man and asked with a low voice. Who placed this sword in our treasure-gathering pavilion? It was a young man. The old man said respectfully. This is the reward for the task he issued. So long as someone is able to find the thing he requires, he'll give this grade 4 spirit sword to that person. 573 Chapter 574, Causing a Stir. Besides that, Pavilion Master, this grade 4 spirit sword doesn't provide an amplification of 59%. The old man looked at the middle-aged man, and he seemed to have thought of something. It doesn't provide an amplification of 59%. The middle-aged man frowned, and then he sized up the spirit sword in his hand once more. Could it be that I'm mistaken? This spirit sword has a deceptive appearance. No, the old man shook his head and laughed bitterly. Pavilion Master, this spirit sword doesn't only provide an amplification of 59%, it is able to provide an amplification of 60%. 60%. The old man's words entered into the middle-aged man, and it seemed like a thunderclap that caused the middle-aged man to be dazed. A 60% amplification. In next to no time, the middle-aged man had a serious expression as he held the sword and tested it. Along with his origin energy surging on the sword in his hand, ancient horned dragon and ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. In the end, he finally confirmed it. It really provides a 60% amplification. Instantly, the middle-aged man's face flushed red, and his eyes that looked at the spirit sword in his hand flickered with a dazzling bright light. His chest rose and fell like a bellow, and it was difficult for him to calm down even after a long time. The old man wasn't surprised by the middle-aged man's loss of composure. As far as he was concerned, the pavilion master was a grade 4 weapons craftsman, and when the pavilion master saw a grade 4 spirit weapon with such a terrifying amplification, it was natural for the pavilion master to be burning with eagerness. What has that young man offered this spirit sword as reward for? The middle-aged man looked at the old man with a burning gaze as he asked. If it was possible, he wanted to obtain this grade 4 spirit sword. If a grade 4 spirit sword that provided an amplification of 60% fell into his hands, then after he carefully studied it, he would perhaps be able to improve his attainment in the Tao of weapons refinement. Perhaps, he would be able to refine a spirit weapon with a 59% amplification because of this, or even refine a grade 4 spirit weapon with a 60% amplification. Pavilion Master, the thing that young man is looking for is a type of medicinal material. He called that medicinal material as ageless root. The old man replied. Ageless root. The middle-aged man frowned. What's that? I've never heard of it. Even Pavilion Master hasn't heard of it. The old man was stunned. As far as he was concerned, this was an extremely unbelievable thing. The Pavilion Master was a top figure that stood at the peak of the Darkin dynasty. Logically speaking, there were few things that the Pavilion Master didn't know. Did he say what characteristics the medicinal material possesses? The middle-aged man continued asking. Yes. The old man nodded, and then he passed on everything the violet-clothed young man said earlier. Not only that, the old man even copied Duan Ling Tian's actions and drew out the ageless root. The ageless root's characteristics were extremely obvious, and it was formed entirely naturally. An ordinary root-state medicinal material was utterly unable to grow into this appearance. What a peculiar medicinal material! The middle-aged man's eyes squinted and he was slightly shocked. With just a glance, he discerned that this medicinal material was extraordinary. Duan Ling Tian naturally didn't know what happened in the treasure-gathering pavilion after he left. Presently, he was sitting by the window in a restaurant in Milky Way City, and he looked at the people on the busy streets and the void-prying stage martial artists and demon beasts that flashed past in the sky. I wonder where that little fellow, Little Gold, is now. Duan Ling Tian's eyes contained slight worry. The little gold mouse had always been bad with directions and was even swept away by the sandstorm, and this caused Duan Ling Tian to be extremely worried. In next to no time, fragrant dishes had arrived. But Duan Ling Tian instead didn't have the appetite. In next to no time, the guests in the restaurant grew more and more, and at the same time, it became bustling. Hey, have you heard? A task issued by the treasure-gathering pavilion half an hour ago is offering a reward for a rare medicinal material. A middle-aged man had just sat down before saying to his companion at the same table. Don't people frequently offer a reward for medicinal materials in the treasure-gathering pavilion? What's so strange about that? His companion regarded it as beneath his notice. Hee, you don't know something. The middle-aged man shook his head. Do you know what the reward is for the medicinal material? What is it? The latter's curiosity was aroused. A grade 4 spirit sword. The middle-aged man spoke clearly with words that was extremely shocking. What? Instantly, the packed restaurant was in a complete uproar. A grade 4 spirit sword as reward for a medicinal material. Is this really true? Many customers in the restaurant slightly didn't believe it. As far as they were concerned, how rare was a grade 4 spirit weapon? How could a mere medicinal material compare to it? Even if it was the most valuable medicinal material they knew of, its worth in their eyes was far inferior to a grade 4 spirit weapon. If all of you don't believe me, feel free to go take a look at the main hall at the first floor of the treasure-gathering pavilion after you finish eating. That task is presently hung on the most conspicuous bulletin board in the main hall. The middle-aged man was instantly unhappy when he saw people doubting him. When they heard the middle-aged man, the customers in the restaurant slightly believe him. Who's so generous to actually want to exchange a grade 4 spirit weapon for a medicinal material? After I finish eating, I'll surely go take a look at what medicinal material he wants to exchange for it. Yeah, if we have that medicinal material in our possessions, that we'll make a fortune. Quickly finish eating so we can go take a look. Many people started gulping down their food, and they swept through the food on their tables. Hee, all of you should go quickly. If you're later, then it's very likely that someone would beat you to the punch. The middle-aged man laughed when he saw this scene, and he spoke with a desire to stir up trouble. Right, I forget to tell of all you something. The grade 4 spirit weapon in the treasure-gathering pavilion that's provided as the reward is a grade 4 spirit weapon that is able to provide an amplification of 60%. Silence. Along with the middle-aged man finishing, the interior of the restaurant was completely deathly silent. Numerous gazes shot onto the middle-aged man in unison. After a short moment, crash, 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 a wave of sounds of bowls and plates falling to the ground and shattering sounded out. Some of the customers had become dazed, and the bowls and plates in their hands fell down accidentally. 60% amplification, are you sure? In next to no time, someone gasped and looked at the middle-aged man as he asked in confirmation. The treasure-gathering pavilion said this. As for the credibility of the treasure-gathering pavilion, I presume all of you are clear about it. They've never made an overstatement for anything, said the middle-aged man. Mother ****, I'm not fucking eating anymore. Waiter, the bill. Instantly, there were people that paid their bills and left. After a short moment, only 2 tables of people didn't leave in the entire restaurant. Besides the middle-aged man's table, only Duan Lingtian's table remained. Presently, these 2 tables seemed to stand out. The middle-aged man was instantly slightly surprised when he saw someone so composed. Little brother, you're not going to go join in the fun. Perhaps you have that medicinal material in your possession. Duan Lingtian raised his head and smiled lightly. Perhaps. After Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he started to immerse himself in eating and drinking. Join in the fun. If this middle-aged man knew that the grade 4 spirit sword was placed in the treasure-gathering pavilion by him, the middle-aged man would probably not say this. Looks like my plan is correct. The influence of the treasure-gathering pavilion is extremely large. I presume it won't be long before the news of a grade 4 spirit sword that provides an amplification of 60% is being provided in exchange for the ageless root would spread out extremely far. After eating his fill, Duan Lingtian paid his bill and left before looking for an inn to stay in. 3 months later, no matter if there's an outcome, I must leave the Darken Dynasty and return to the Darkstone Empire, otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to make it for the Young Genius competition of the Darkstone Empire. Duan Lingtian thought to himself after he found a place to stay. Duan Lingtian closed his eyes and rested his mind after lying in the bath barrel that had steam rising from it. I hope Little Gold has already returned to the Darkstone Empire. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. He was always unable to stop worrying about the little gold mouse in his heart. Although the little gold mouse was a demon beast that followed by his side after Little Black and Little White, during these few years, Little Black and Little White weren't by his side, and it had always been Little Gold that followed by his side. He'd long since had deep feelings towards Little Gold, and he'd taken Little Gold to be a loved one in his heart. After he finished bathing, Duan Lingtian changed into a set of dry clothes before sitting cross-legged on the bed, intending to cultivate. After he consumed a void-strengthening pill, Duan Lingtian closed his eyes and started cultivating. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Form. During this period of time, Duan Lingtian planned to stay in Milky Way City and not go out anymore. Firstly, he wanted to quietly cultivate. Secondly, he was worried that Little Gold would appear in Milky Way City. Milky Way City was too chaotic. During these few days, Duan Lingtian had walked around Milky Way City and he was able to see many martial artists losing their lives. In Milky Way City, the definition of the law of the jungle was explained extremely perfectly. 2 months passed. Duan Lingtian underwent the final breakthrough. So long as he charged through the bottleneck, he would be able to break through to the 6th level of the void prying stage in one go. This time, Duan Lingtian spent 3 days and 3 nights before finally smoothly breaking through. Whoosh! The origin energy on Duan Lingtian's body surged and roared. Swoosh! As he looked at the 8,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that had condensed into form in the sky above him after the energy of heaven and earth roiled, Duan Lingtian revealed a wisp of a smile. I've finally broken through. Duan Lingtian's mood was elated. The next 7th level of the void prying stage will be another critical threshold. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid it's impossible for me to break through before the young genius competition of the Darkstone Empire begins. This was something that Duan Lingtian knew extremely well in his heart. I hope there will be some leads to the ageless root. The rebirth pill was a turning point for him, but unfortunately, he must first find the ageless root to refine the rebirth pill. Otherwise, all this would only be a dream. I have to leave in a month from now. I'll go around during this month and see if Little Gold has come to Milky Way City. In the following month, besides cultivating, Duan Lingtian moved about all around Milky Way City. Of course, he didn't cause trouble himself, and he intentionally avoided those martial artists at the 9th level of the void prying stage or above. If a martial artist below the 9th level of the void prying stage offended him, then he wouldn't hold back and directly killed the martial artist swiftly. Presently, Duan Lingtian's cultivation had stepped into the 6th level of the void prying stage, and his spiritual force had been pushed to the 8th level of the void prying stage. So long as they weren't inscription masters, then he was able to kill all martial artists below the 9th level of the void prying stage. Bang! A corpse fell down before Duan Lingtian. This was an 8th level void prying stage martial artist that had comprehended advanced force. 574 Chapter 575, Multiplied Profit. After my spiritual force broke through, the illusory space constructed by 1,000 illusions is sufficient to disregard advanced force. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he looked at the corpse that fell before his feet, and he was slightly delighted. Now, even if I go against Su Li, I won't be afraid of his advanced sword force. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he thought to himself. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian turned around and left, leaving behind the surrounding crowd of void-prying stage martial artists that looked at Duan Lingtian with terror. This young man looked to be around the age of 25, yet his strength is actually so terrifying. With his natural talent and strength, he ought to not be someone with no reputation in the Darken dynasty. The surrounding people whispered in discussion. Duan Lingtian, who had just taken a few steps, frowned, and then he looked towards the sky as if he noticed something. After he noticed that no one was high above in the sky, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief and continued forward. After Duan Lingtian left, a tall figure appeared from behind the clouds and mist high above in the sky. This little fellow has such acute intuition, I was actually almost noticed by him. The tall figure was a middle-aged man who had a surprised expression now. Even an 8th level void-prying stage martial artist that has comprehended advanced force died at his hands. Possessing such strength at an age like his is truly difficult to come by. The middle-aged man's brows raised. Yet I wonder which one of the young geniuses that possesses the greatest reputation in the Darken dynasty he is. A month of time passed by extremely quickly. During this month, even though Duan Lingtian had deliberately looked all around for the little gold mouse, yet he returned empty-handed. Looks like Little Gold didn't come to Milky Way City. Duan Lingtian, who walked out of the inn, shook his head and sighed. Now, I can only hope that Little Gold has already returned to the imperial city of the Darkstone Empire. Duan Lingtian walked towards the treasure-gathering pavilion as he worried about the little gold mouse. After he arrived at the treasure-gathering pavilion, Duan Lingtian felt slightly perturbed. I wonder if there's any leads to the ageless root. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and walked into the treasure-gathering pavilion. After he walked into the treasure-gathering pavilion, Duan Lingtian saw the task that hung on the bulletin board in the main hall, and there was even a picture on it that had the ageless root drawn upon it. Duan Lingtian let out a breath of air, and a wisp of a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. He'd come back empty-handed in the end. He knew clearly in his heart that if someone had found the ageless root, then his task would have surely been removed long ago. The task still hanging there meant that during these 3 months, no one had found the ageless root. In next to no time, an attendant moved over to greet him. Duan Lingtian recognized that this attendant was precisely the attendant that brought him to the 3rd floor to issue the task 3 months ago. Bring me to that senior, I want to remove my reward. Duan Lingtian spoke to the attendant via voice transmission. The attendant nodded and respectfully led the way. Since 3 months ago, after he witnessed the might of the spirit sword that Duan Lingtian placed in the treasure-gathering pavilion, he knew that Duan Lingtian's identity was extraordinary. Otherwise, how would he possess such a heaven-defying grade 4 spirit sword? At the 3rd level of the treasure-gathering pavilion, Duan Lingtian met that old man once again. Senior, Duan Lingtian looked at the old man. You intend to remove the reward task? The old man couldn't help but be stunned when he saw Duan Lingtian taking out the half of the broken jade ornament. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. It's probably impossible to find the thing I want in a short amount of time. I intend to think of a way in the future. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian saw to his shock that the old man glanced at the nearby attendant, and the attendant left sensibly. Senior. Duan Lingtian revealed a puzzled expression. Young man, our pavilion master said that so long as you come to remove the reward task, then I should take you to see him. Please follow me. The old man left the counter and called out to Duan Lingtian before walking off. Pavilion master. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. Could it be because of that grade 4 spirit sword? Duan Lingtian quickly guessed the reason. When he thought of the reputation of the treasure-gathering pavilion, Duan Lingtian wasn't worried that the pavilion master of the treasure-gathering pavilion would do anything to him. Duan Lingtian followed behind the old man to head upstairs along the staircase. Senior, why does the pavilion master want to see me? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Young man, I'll be honest with you, the pavilion master wants to see you because he's interested in the grade 4 spirit sword you placed in our treasure-gathering pavilion. The old man spoke straightforwardly. As expected, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart before saying, Senior, if the pavilion master is able to find the ageless root, I'll naturally give him the grade 4 spirit sword. The old man shook his head and smiled, but he didn't say anything. In next to no time, the old man brought Duan Lingtian to the 5th floor. The old man stood outside and spoke respectfully. Pavilion master, the guest that placed that grade 4 spirit sword has arrived. Please come in. A sonorous voice sounded out. Although it didn't contain any origin energy, it still caused Duan Lingtian's mind to shake. What a deep cultivation. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. Young man, please enter, said the old man to Duan Lingtian. Whereas he himself instead stood at the side like a guardian. Duan Lingtian walked in with large strides. A tall middle-aged man in blue clothes stood there like a statue. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out to envelop the middle-aged man. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. He noticed that his spiritual force melted into the middle-aged man's body as if it went into a ball of cotton, and had no place to exert force on. It gave him a mysterious and unfathomable feeling. Could it be? Duan Lingtian was shocked in his head, and after a thought emerged in his mind, it was difficult to suppress it any longer. I'm afraid only a void interpretation stage expert is able to cause my spiritual force to lose effect. Duan Lingtian gasped secretly. A void interpretation stage expert. You placed that grade 4 spirit sword in my treasure-gathering pavilion. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man turned around, and his stiff face faced Duan Lingtian as he asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Whoosh. The middle-aged man raised his hand, and a spirit sword appeared out of thin air. Duan Lingtian was able to discern that this spirit sword was precisely the grade 4 spirit sword he'd placed in the treasure-gathering pavilion. I'll go straight to the point. The middle-aged man looked at Duan Lingtian and spoke frankly. I'm rather interested in this spirit sword, but I'm temporarily unable to find the ageless root you want. Duan Lingtian frowned. This void interpretation stage expert wouldn't be thinking of using might to oppress him and forcefully seize his grade 4 spirit sword, right? In next to no time, Duan Lingtian found out that he'd overthought things. How about this? Lend this grade 4 spirit sword to me for 3 years. For the sake of making up for your loss, I can refine another ordinary grade 4 spirit sword for you and another 2 spirit fruits. The middle-aged man didn't mince his words. Lend for 3 years. Make up with a grade 4 spirit sword and 2 spirit fruits. You're a grade 4 weapons craftsman. Duan Lingtian reacted to the meaning behind the middle-aged man's words and spoke with slight surprise. Hiss. Practically at the instant Duan Lingtian finished speaking, a strand of blue flames arose in the hand of the middle-aged man with a flip of his palm. The blue-colored flames raged and were restless. It was precisely a grade 4 weapon flame. The weapon flame that was specific to a grade 4 weapons craftsman. Yes, I'm a grade 4 weapons craftsman. The middle-aged man nodded. So in this way, Pavilion Master wants to borrow my grade 4 spirit sword to study it. Duan Lingtian went straight to the heart of the matter. He'd guessed the Pavilion Master's intentions. It was none other than because the grade 4 spirit sword he placed in the treasure-gathering pavilion possessed an amplification of 60%, so the Pavilion Master wanted to study the profundity within it and improve his own level of weapons refinement ability. Exactly. The middle-aged man nodded, and then he asked. Do you agree to my conditions? So long as you agree, I'll give you the compensation right now. Besides that, during this period of 3 years, I'll do my best to help you search for that ageless root. Needless to say, the conditions of the treasure-gathering pavilion's pavilion master was filled with temptation, and it caused Duan Lingtian to find it difficult to resist. Pavilion master, I want to know what spirit fruit you want to give me. Duan Lingtian asked. Void reserve fruit, spirit void fruit. The pavilion master spoke slowly. Duan Lingtian's eyes abruptly lit up when he heard this. The void reserve fruit was a precious spirit fruit that was able to improve the cultivation of a void prying stage martial artist, and it wasn't inferior when compared to the void refining fruit he consumed in the past. As for the spirit void fruit, it was even more shocking. It was a spirit fruit that void initiation stage martial artists used to improve their cultivation, and there was a possibility that a void prying stage martial artist would explode from the pent-up energy if the martial artist forcefully consumed it. Duan Lingtian had never consumed both the spirit fruits in the past, and to Duan Lingtian, they were undoubtedly precious treasures. Borrow my grade 4 spirit sword for 3 years, and in return, he'll give me an ordinary grade 4 spirit sword and 2 spirit fruits. Besides that, he'll also help me look for the ageless root. At this moment, Duan Lingtian exploded out with joy in his heart. To him, this was an extremely great thing. If it was only a grade 4 spirit weapon, and so long as he had the materials, he could refine it at any time. But that void reserve fruit and spirit void fruit were precious treasures that could only be acquired by luck but not sought after. How about it? With a raise of his hand, 2 spirit fruits had appeared in the hand of the pavilion master. Besides that, there was also another spirit sword. Pavilion master. Duan Lingtian looked at the pavilion master. I agree to your conditions. The pavilion master was originally slightly perturbed. After all, although he compensated Duan Lingtian with a grade 4 spirit weapon and 2 spirit fruits. But as far as he was concerned, the value of a grade 4 spirit sword that provided an amplification of 60% was far higher than the value of the things he gave Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's agreement caused him to heave a sigh of relief. Pavilion master, I'll trouble you with searching for the ageless root. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly and then casually put away the grade 4 spirit sword and spirit fruits that the pavilion master passed to him. This spirit weapon's materials are not bad. If I refine it once more, it will similarly be able to possess an amplification of 60%. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. To him, the grade 4 spirit sword that the pavilion master compensated to him only required him spending 2 hours of time before it could transform into a spirit weapon that was at the top grade amongst the top grade. At that time, the value of this spirit sword wouldn't be inferior to the grade 4 spirit sword he refined earlier and was in the hands of the pavilion master. It could be said that not only did he not suffer any losses, he even used a short 2 hours of time to earn 2 spirit fruits. Most importantly, with this pavilion master of the Darkin Dynasty's Milky Way City's treasure-gathering pavilion helping him search for the ageless root, the efficiency of the search would undoubtedly increase greatly. When all was said and done, this time, he'd made a fortune. 575 Chapter 576, 7th level of the Void Prying Stage. Don't worry, although I don't dare guarantee I can find the ageless root, I will try my best. The pavilion master of the treasure-gathering pavilion promised Duan Lingtian. Thank you, pavilion master. Duan Lingtian hurriedly thanked him. In all the various dynasties, I can be considered to have great knowledge, yet I've never heard of the ageless root that you're looking for. The pavilion master looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. I wonder if it's convenient for you to tell me what type of medicinal material the ageless root is and what use does it have? Of course. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly and said casually, the ageless root is a medicinal material that's slightly similar to the sharp claws of the phoenix from the legends. Although it's a medicinal material, the ageless root is instead able to be used as a weapons refinement material. Weapons refinement material? The pavilion master's pupils constricted. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. I know a grade 3 weapons craftsman. He's able to use this ageless root as the main material to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon. Grade 3 weapons craftsman. Grade 3 spirit weapon. Waves of shock arose on the calm face of the pavilion master. You know a grade 3 weapons craftsman. The pavilion master's breathing became hurried. He was a grade 4 weapons craftsman, and in the entire Darkin dynasty or the various dynasties, he was an existence that stood at the peak of the Tao of weapons refinement. An appearance of a grade 3 weapons craftsman in the various dynasties has never been heard of. To the people of the various dynasties, a grade 3 weapons craftsman was an existence of legend that was far beyond their reach. Supposedly, weapons craftsmen at grade 3 of above existed in the mysterious and unfathomable foreign lands. But in the various dynasties, there were few who left the foreign lands and returned. So to the people of the various dynasties, a weapons craftsman at grade 3 or above was an extremely mysterious existence. As grade 4 weapons craftsmen, all of them were filled with yearning towards becoming a grade 3 weapons craftsman, and the Pavilion Master was no exception. Pavilion Master, the grade 4 spirit sword in your hands was refined by that grade 3 weapons craftsman, said Duan Lingtian. Although all this was casually made up by Duan Lingtian, he spoke convincingly, and it caused the Pavilion Master to deeply believe him. No wonder, I was wondering how could a grade 4 spirit weapon that provided an amplification of 60% possible appear in the Darken Dynasty. So it turns out that it's from a grade 3 weapons craftsman senior. The Pavilion Master gasped, and the gaze he shot at Duan Lingtian was completely different. If it was said that he didn't really take this young man seriously in the past, then now, he'd instead taken this young man to be an existence that was on the same level as him, and he didn't dare be discourteous to the young man in the slightest. Only because this was a young man that knew a grade 3 weapons craftsman. As far as he was concerned, since this young man was able to make a grade 3 weapons craftsman refine a weapon for him, then this young man surely had a deep relationship with the weapons craftsman. Little brother, what's the relationship between you and the grade 3 weapons craftsman? The Pavilion Master looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with slight excitement. He's my master. Duan Lingtian spoke straightforwardly. Master. Little brother, so you're that senior's disciple. I've been impolite earlier. The Pavilion Master gasped secretly, and he spoke once more with a serious tone. The person that stood before him was the disciple of a grade 3 weapons craftsman. Pavilion Master, don't mention it. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. The tremendous change of the attitude of the Pavilion Master before him wasn't surprising to Duan Lingtian. A grade 3 weapons craftsman was sufficient to make many thoughts gush within the Pavilion Master's mind. Little brother, I'm called Shang Ying. Besides being the Pavilion Master of the treasure-gathering pavilion in the Darken Dynasty's Milky Way City, I'm also the Vice Guild Master of the Darken Dynasty's Weapons Craftsman Guild's main guild. The Pavilion Master, Shang Ying, looked at Duan Lingtian. May I know your name, little brother? Duan Lingtian was secretly shocked in his heart when he heard Shang Ying. He never expected that besides being the Pavilion Master of this treasure-gathering pavilion, Shang Ying actually had another respected identity. Pavilion Master, I'm called Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian introduced himself. Duan Lingtian, a wisp of astonishment flashed imperceptibly in the eyes of Shang Ying. He'd never heard of this name. Could it be that he isn't from the Darken Dynasty? Shang Ying thought in his heart. Otherwise, with this person's shocking strength, it would logically be impossible for him to be a person that isn't well known. How about I call you Brother Lingtian? Shang Ying lightly smiled as he asked. I'm overwhelmed by Pavilion Master's favor of addressing me like that. Duan Lingtian smiled. Brother Lingtian, may I know where your master is now? If it's possible, I hope to be able to personally pay a visit to him. After he found out that Duan Lingtian was the disciple of a grade 3 weapons craftsman, Shang Ying was more and more courteous towards Duan Lingtian. Pavilion Master, I'm afraid that's not possible. That master of mine usually doesn't like meeting unfamiliar people. Of course, if Pavilion Master is able to find that ageless root, perhaps my master will be happy and be willing to meet Pavilion Master. Duan Lingtian shook his head, and then he added an extra sentence at the end. The reason Duan Lingtian added these words was naturally because he wanted Shang Ying to do his very best to find the ageless root. As expected, after he heard Duan Lingtian's words, Shang Ying's eyes lit up and he had a serious expression. Don't worry Brother Lingtian, I'll surely do my utmost to find the ageless root. Shang Ying already had a plan in his heart. He would utilize his enormous network of relationships to find that ageless root. Just for the sake of meeting that grade 3 weapons craftsman and properly seeking guidance. Then I'll be troubling Pavilion Master, it's getting later and I ought to leave. Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Shang Ying before leaving the 5th floor and leaving the treasure-gathering pavilion. My gains this time aren't bad. After he left the treasure-gathering pavilion and walked out of Milky Way City, A joyful smile hung on the face of Duan Lingtian, who sat on the back of the 7th level void prying stage demon beast and left. With a raise of his hand, a completely glittering and translucent spirit fruit had appeared in his hand. It was precisely the void reserve fruit. A spirit fruit that was comparable to a void refining fruit. When Duan Lingtian was at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Dragon and Phoenix Academy, Duan Lingtian had gone deep into Blackwind Ridge during the first experience mission to wipe out the bandits, and he'd obtained the additional reward of a void refining fruit at that time. After he consumed the void refining fruit, his strength had swiftly improved. Be obedient. Duan Lingtian noticed that after he took out the void reserve fruit, the demon beast beneath him became slightly restless. Obviously, it was drawn by the void reserve fruit. Duan Lingtian swallowed the void reserve fruit with a few bites, and then he consumed a void strengthening pill before closing his eyes and starting to cultivate 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Form. After he consumed the void reserve fruit, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body was vast and powerful, and it wasn't long before it arrived at the breakthrough point. The final charge to the 7th level of the void prying stage was completed 10 days later. Bang! Within the tough meridians in Duan Lingtian's body, his vast origin energy gushed out and easily charged through the final bottleneck. At the same time, a tremendous change occurred in Duan Lingtian's origin energy. I've broken through. Duan Lingtian abruptly opened his eyes as a bright light flashed within, and slight delight appeared on his face. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before lightly clenching his fists. Origin energy suffused his fists and raged atop it. At the same time, an enormous lifelike silhouette coiled down from the sky above him. It was precisely an ancient horned dragon silhouette. Duan Lingtian's cultivation had finally broken through to the 7th level of the void prying stage. Not much of the medicinal strength of that void reserve fruit still remains, I still have to rely on myself for my future cultivation. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. As for the other spirit void fruit that Pavilion Master Shang gave me, I can only consume it after I break through to the 1st level of the void initiation stage, otherwise, it would be too risky. Presently, Su Li's cultivation has probably already broken through to the 7th level of the void prying stage. As for Luo Zhan and the others, it would probably be slightly inferior. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian had thought of Su Li and the others again. The changes in me after going out this time is probably sufficient to shock them, right? Duan Lingtian revealed a brilliant smile. In next to no time, the smile on Duan Lingtian's face was restrained. Little Gold, where exactly are you now? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel a wave of worry when he thought of the little gold mouse. In his eyes, the little gold mouse didn't have the slightest sense of direction, and wanting her to return to the Darkstone Empire's imperial city by herself seemed to be slightly difficult. I hope she knows how to ask a human martial artist for the way. Duan Lingtian could only console himself in this way. In the following journey, Duan Lingtian was laden with worry, and he was slightly dispirited to cultivate. I'll almost be able to arrive at the imperial city in another half a month. After a few months, Duan Lingtian, who'd entered the territory of the Darkstone Empire, thought in his heart. On the way back, Duan Lingtian took a straight path, so it was extremely efficient. The Darkstone Empire's Young Genius competition is in a month from now, I'll be just in time to make it. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Currently, Duan Lingtian was situated at the northern area of the Darkstone Empire, whereas, an unexpected guest had arrived at the southern area of the Darkstone Empire. Swoosh! A figure in yellow clothes flashed past in the sky with an extremely swift speed. Everywhere the figure passed, the clouds and mist were shaken apart and seemed to have transformed into a heavenly road. The person that way hurrying on was a yellow-clothed young girl that looked to be around the age of 16, her appearance was like carved jade, and she was extremely beautiful. From the young girl's young face, one could discern that when she matured in the future, she would surely become a drop-dead gorgeous beauty. Hiss hiss, suddenly, 2 light sounds sounded out from beneath the yellow-clothed young girl's sleeve. Subsequently, 2 little heads stuck out from there. It was precisely 2 little pythons. The 2 little pythons were black and white respectively, the former had a golden single horn on its head, the latter had a silver single horn on its head. Little black, little white. We'll be able to see Big Brother Lingtian really soon. The young girl rubbed the little heads of the 2 little pythons as she smiled lightly. Hiss hiss, suddenly, the little white python raised its head to look at the young girl, and its eyes emitted slight worry. Don't worry. The young girl lightly shook her head. Qing Nu ought to not come looking for us for the time being, but, after she deals with her business here, she's probably be coming to look for us. At that time, we'll have to leave again. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons dropped their little heads, and they were slightly dejected. Don't worry, I'll surely sneak out again in the future, and I'll bring the two of you to look for Big Brother Ling Tian. When they heard the young girl's promise, the two little pythons quieted down once again. 576 Chapter 577, the number one expert in the Empire. Darkstone Empire, Imperial City. Because the young genius competition was approaching, there were many unfamiliar faces in the Imperial City. These unfamiliar faces were either from the various powers of the Darkstone Empire, or from the various imperial kingdoms under the Darkstone Empire. In the past few days, the Imperial City's guards had started to become busy. Because battles frequently erupted all over the Imperial City. These battles were mostly caused by the young geniuses from the various powers that were gathered in the Imperial City. Every single young genius that could come to the Imperial City to participate in the young genius competition was a proud son of the heavens with extreme arrogance, and no one was convinced of the other's supremacy. Along with the young genius competition coming closer and closer, the Imperial City once again returned to calmness. Supposedly, the young genius competition that starts 3 days from now will be held in the square at the center of the Imperial City. I wonder if it's true. If it's true, then I must surely join in to watch the excitement. It's already confirmed, this news is true. Presently, the city guard have already started building combat rings at the square in the center of the Imperial City. Along with the young genius competition coming closer, the Imperial City of the Darkstone Empire became more and more bustling with noise and excitement. At a spacious courtyard in the Imperial City, the group from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were all gathered together. Why hasn't Yuan Lingtian returned? The young genius competition is going to start in 3 days. Kai Ming frowned. HMPH. Duan Lingtian has entirely no awareness that he has to bring glory to our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I'll absolutely not forgive him if he misses the young genius competition this time. Prince Sheng's expression was gloomy as his eyes emitted a cold and indifferent light. Revered Elder Kai, if Duan Lingtian misses the young genius competition, then I hope you don't interfere when I punish him. Prince Sheng's words caused Su Li, Luo Zan, and Chen Xiaoshui to become gloomy. They were able to perceive the killing intent contained in Prince Sheng's words. Prince Sheng had aroused killing intent towards Duan Lingtian. 3 days later, 9 combat rings stood at the center square of the Imperial City, and a spacious high platform stood around the 9 combat rings. On this high platform, tables and chairs were neatly placed on it, and it was obviously a spectating area. It could be imagined that this spectating area was prepared for the various representatives and the various powers of the Darkstone Empire. Outside the 9 combat rings, streams of people surged and were bubbling with noise. Presently, at the empty space between the 9 combat rings and the high platform, there were many young geniuses scattered about. In terms of age, the eldest amongst this group of young geniuses was at the age of 36 or 37. Why hasn't Duan Lingtian arrived? Su Li, Luo Zan, and Chen Xiaoshui stood together as they looked all around, yet they didn't find a trace of Duan Lingtian. As for Kai Ming and Prince Sheng, they were now seated on the seat on the high platform. Looks like Duan Lingtian has really not taken this young genius competition seriously. I'll surely make him feel miserable once he returns. Killing intent shot out from Prince Sheng's eyes as he spoke in a low voice. Prince Sheng, I believe Duan Lingtian won't break his promise. It's surely because he encountered something that he hasn't made an appearance yet. Kai Ming's eyes contained slight worry mixed within. HMPH. Prince Sheng grunted coldly, and he thought to himself, it's best if he's dead. Presently, the people on the high platform grew more and more numerous. These people were all the higher-ups that were from the various powers of the Darkstone Empire, and the members of the various imperial kingdoms under the Darkstone Empire. Isn't this revered Elder Kai Ming? An old man wearing azure-clothed acted surprised after noticed Kai Ming. Kai Ming looked at the azure-clothed old man, and his face sank. Wei Kun. I thought you people from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom wouldn't come. According to my knowledge, the whatever 5 great young masters of your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom only have ordinary natural talent. The corners of Wei Kun's mouth curled into a wisp of disdain. No matter how ordinary they are, they wouldn't be inferior to your grandson. Kai Ming spoke indifferently. Kai Ming, you Kai Ming's words caused Wei Kun to burst into rage, and the origin energy on his body leapt up as he instantly wanted to attack. Revered Elder Wei, the middle-aged man standing by Wei Kun's side restrained the old man, and he reminded. This is the Darkstone Empire's imperial city. Wei Kun took a deep breath when he heard this, and the origin energy on his body that hadn't completely risen up gradually died down. But the gaze he shot at Kai Ming was filled with provocation. Whoosh! Suddenly, the clouds and mist high above in the distant sky roiled. Subsequently, a luxurious palanquin appeared. There was a total of 8 martial artists at the void-prying stage or above at the front and back of the palanquin, and they carried it on their shoulders as they filled the role of a bearer. At the side of the palanquin was a large word written with exquisite writing. Yang. After a short moment, the 8 void-prying stage martial artists carried the palanquin to the side of the high platform. This scene caused many young geniuses from all over to be dumbstruck. What a parade! Luo Zan's pupils constricted and he spoke with astonishment. Could it be that the person in the palanquin is the Darkstone Empire's emperor? The emperor probably won't be coming, it ought to be some great figure in the Darkstone Empire. Chen Xiaoshuai shook his head. It's King Yang. Right at this moment, Su Li spoke. King Yang, Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai were stunned. The King Yang that's said to be the closest to the void interpretation stage in the Darkstone Empire. Luo Zan was shocked. Darkstone Empire, King Yang. He'd heard of King Yang long ago. Supposedly, the Darkstone Empire's King Yang was the #1 expert in the Darkstone Empire. Early on when we were still young, King Yang had already been publicly acknowledged as the expert that was closest to the void interpretation stage in the Darkstone Empire. According to me, it's extremely like that he had already stepped into the void interpretation stage. Said Chen Xiaoshuai. It's possible. Luo Zan nodded. When King Yang became famous, he was only a youth. Now, over 10 years had passed, and King Yang's strength would surely be extremely terrifying. Although they're both princes, our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Prince Sheng is far from able to compare with King Yang. Chen Xiaoshuai's gaze stared fixedly at the palanquin in the sky. Making 8 void-prying stage martial artists willingly be a bearer of his palanquin, such a parade wasn't something that anyone could enjoy. Greetings, King Yang. Meanwhile, the representatives of the various powers and imperial kingdoms on the high platform stood up and respectfully bowed towards the palanquin. Kai Ming and Prince Sheng were amongst them as well. Prince Sheng, whose face was covered in killing intent when he mentioned Duan Lingtian earlier, now had a humble expression when facing this palanquin. Meanwhile, the palanquin's curtain was pulled open, and a tall figure slowly walked out. This was a middle-aged man in a white robe with golden edges, his expression firm, and he emitted a dignified aura from between his brows. There was a conspicuous red mole between his brows. It was precisely the #1 expert of the Darkstone Empire. King Yang. After King Yang left the palanquin. Long live King Yang. Meanwhile, the people that stood outside the 9 combat rings bowed respectfully to King Yang. King Yang looked around the surroundings and nodded indifferently, and then he descended onto the high platform with a calm expression before sitting on the seat at the absolute center. The young geniuses brought by the various representatives ought to have already arrived, right? King Yang's gaze flashed past the various representatives on the high platform. For a time, besides the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Kai Ming and Prince Sheng, the others had all nodded. In next to no time, the two of them had become the center of attention. What? The young genius the both of you brought hasn't arrived yet? King Yang looked at Kai Ming and Prince Sheng as he asked indifferently. Although his tone was calm, but the people present were able to feel a trace of pressure from it. King Yang, before King Yang, Kai Ming felt extremely pressure, and he took a deep breath before intending to explain. But he hadn't finished speaking when he shut his mouth. Whoosh! High above in the sky, a violet-colored figure seemed to have transformed into a violet-colored bolt of lightning that instantly flashed over and descended onto the empty space between the high platform and the 9 combat rings. Duan Lingtian. Kai Ming's gaze lit up, and then he looked at King Yang and said respectfully, King Yang, all the young geniuses of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom have arrived. King Yang nodded indifferently and withdrew his gaze from Kai Ming. Meanwhile, the numerous gazes of the people present descended onto the violet-colored young man that had just arrived, and even more of them were shocked by the violet-clothed young man's age. This young man, that only looks to be around 25 years old, is one of the young geniuses of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that came to participate in the Young Genius competition. The various Imperial Kingdoms under our Darkstone Empire only possess 5 positions each, two young men that aren't over 30 have actually come from this Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Looks like this Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom really does lack talented people. Yeah, otherwise, it wouldn't be to the extent of allowing two young men to seize the positions to participate in the Empire's Young Genius competition. No matter if it was the representatives of the various powers and imperial kingdoms on the high platform, or the people in the distance that were watching the show, they were all discussing animatedly now. Kai Ming, looks like your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom really lacks people with talent. According to my knowledge, any one of your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's 5 great young masters seems to be over 30 years of age, right? These two people ought to not be figures amongst the 5 great young masters of your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. The azure-clothed old man that had conflict with Kai Ming earlier spoke with a ridiculing smile. Wei Kun, talk after the young geniuses of your Bajo Imperial Kingdom are able to defeat the both of them. Now, keep your stinking mouth shut. Kai Ming replied extremely bluntly. HMPH, looks like you're extremely confident of the two of them. Wei Kun snorted coldly, and disdain was mixed within between his brows. Two little kids that weren't above 30 years old. As far as he was concerned, the two of them were unable to pose any threat to the young geniuses of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian, why have you only arrived now? Luo Zan looked at the violet-clothed young man that had just descended by his side, and he asked curiously. I encountered some matter to deal with on the way and was delayed. The violet-clothed young man was precisely Duan Lingtian, who was worn out from his journey. Originally, according to Duan Lingtian's estimations, he ought to have been able to return to the imperial city of the Darkstone Empire a few days ago. However, he was instead delayed by something on the way. 7 days ago, when Duan Lingtian arrived at the mountains at the northern part of the Darkstone Empire, he unexpectedly noticed 2 9th-level void-prying stage demon beasts battling each other to their heart's content. He originally thought that the 2 demon beasts were fighting for some treasure. So, Duan Lingtian had killed both of them when they fought to the point of exhaustion, and then he started searching the surroundings. But after searching for a few days, he was still unable to find anything, and he could only leave with disappointment in the end. 577 Chapter 578, the number 1 young genius in the Empire. Actually, it was understandable that Duan Lingtian would be mistaken. Those 2 9th-level void-prying stage demon beasts had strengths that were on par. According to the law of survival of demon beasts, unless it was a battle that was caused for the sake of a treasure, otherwise, 2 demon beasts with equal strength would normally not fight to the death. I can only wait until I have time in the future to go there and take a look once more. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Fortunately, you've arrived on time. Chen Xiaoshuai heaved a sigh of relief. Duan Lingtian nodded. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out under his curiosity, and it detected the cultivations of the 3 people by his side. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian shook as he looked at Su Li with astonishment. Heavens, what have I seen? Su Li has actually broken through to the 9th level of the void-prying stage. I originally thought that after I broke through to the 7th level of the void-prying stage this time, I'd be able to chase up to Su Li's cultivation, but I never expected that he's actually similar to me and has broken through 3 levels. Duan Lingtian was secretly shocked. The advancement of Luo Zan and Chen Xiaoshuai's cultivation caused him to be surprised as well. 6th level of the void-prying stage, they'd both broken through 2 stages. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed past Saber Young Master, Long Yun. 8th level of the void-prying stage. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be shocked. Long Yun's improvement was actually equal to Su Li's. Looks like their improvement is certainly related to the Master, supporting them from behind. Duan Lingtian was easily able to guess this. Who's that person? Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian's gaze shot towards the high platform as he noticed the old man that was standing in opposition with Kai Ming. I don't know. Luo Zan and the others shook their heads. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed a gaze that contained killing intent locking onto him. He didn't need to look, yet was able to guess, the owner of this gaze was surely that Prince Shang. Duan Lingtian disregarded Prince Shang and instead looked at the white-robed middle-aged man that sat at the center seat. This middle-aged man wore white robes with golden edges. His appearance was imposing, and with just a look, one was able to know that he wasn't an ordinary person. Especially the red mole between his brows that seemed as if it was invaded with blood, it even caused one to be unable to forget him. He's King Yang. Luo Zan introduced him to Duan Lingtian. King Yang. Duan Lingtian was stunned and asked curiously. Who is this King Yang? King Yang is the second brother of the current emperor of the Darkstone Empire and the #1 expert in the empire. Over 10 years ago, there were rumors that said he was approaching the nether interpretation stage. Said Luo Zan. 10 years ago, he was approaching the nether interpretation stage. Duan Lingtian was surprised. Wouldn't that mean that it's very likely that he has already broken through to the void interpretation stage now? He has most probably broken through to the void interpretation stage. Chen Xiaoshui nodded. Void interpretation stage, huh? Duan Lingtian's gaze shot onto King Yang. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out to envelop King Yang, intending to pry into King Yang's cultivation. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that when his spiritual force touched King Yang, it seemed as if it had touched a ball of cotton, and it had no place to exert force upon. This feeling was no different from when he checked the cultivation of Shang Ying, the pavilion master of the Darken Dynasty Milky Way City's treasure-gathering pavilion. He really is an expert that has stepped into the void interpretation stage. Duan Lingtian's heart thumped as he confirmed it. He was certain that his current spiritual force was even able to check the cultivation of a 9th-level void initiation stage expert, and he was only helpless against a martial artist at the void interpretation stage and above. His current spiritual force had been pushed to break through to the 9th level of the void prying stage along with the breakthrough of his cultivation to the 7th level of the void prying stage, and it was always 2 levels higher than his cultivation. Duan Lingtian withdrew his spiritual force in a timely manner. If Duan Lingtian were to let it go on, then as a void interpretation stage expert, even if King Yang wasn't an inscription master, he would still be able to notice that someone was prying into his cultivation. A void interpretation stage expert wasn't as simple as only possessing shocking strength. Everyone. King Yang, who was on the high platform, stood up suddenly, and then he looked all around the surroundings as he spoke with a voice that was like a thunderclap as it entered into the ears of everyone present. Firstly, I sincerely represent the Darkstone Empire's imperial family to welcome everyone to the Darkstone Empire and to the Imperial City. I hope your trips weren't too arduous. King Yang's words were obviously spoken towards the representatives and young geniuses from the various imperial kingdoms. Thank you for your concern, King Yang. Instantly, the representatives of the various imperial kingdoms stood up and were overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. King Yang nodded, and then he continued. Today, the young geniuses of the various sects of my Darkstone Empire and the young geniuses of the various imperial kingdoms have gathered here together with a single objective. That is to decide on the 10 people with the strongest strength to head to the Darken Dynasty and compete for the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties with the young geniuses of the Darken Dynasty and the various empires. King Yang spoke clearly with a resounding voice, and it was like a thunderclap piercing the ear. The martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Along with King Yang finishing his speech, the gazes of the crowd of young geniuses including Duan Lingtian lit up. They were all standing here today for the sake of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. The rules for the Young Genius competition today is extremely simple, to decide 9 great masters of the combat ring and a #1 young genius of the empire that's able to stand above all the 9 great combat ring masters. King Yang continued. The #1 young genius of the empire. King Yang's words caused the breathing of most of the young geniuses present to become hurried. What an honor it was. Amongst the 5 great young geniuses of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, only Duan Lingtian and Su Li were comparatively composed. Duan Lingtian, will the #1 young genius of the empire have any real rewards? Su Li asked Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. Probably. After all, this young genius competition is held by the Darkstone Empire. Duan Lingtian guessed. King Yang. Suddenly, a young genius whose affiliation was unknown looked at King Yang and asked respectfully. May I know if the person that obtains the honor of being the #1 young genius in the empire will obtain any real reward? Duan Lingtian and Su Li looked at each other before smiling. Looks like they weren't the only ones concerned about this. For a time, the young geniuses of the various powers and imperial kingdoms and all the representatives looked at King Yang. Even if it was the spectators that came to watch the battles, they'd looked at King Yang as well. Obviously, they were all curious. Of course, when faced with a myriad of gazes, King Yang's expression remained unchanged as he nodded. Subsequently, under numerous burning and concentrated gazes, King Yang continued. The person that becomes eminent and seizes the honor of being the #1 genius in the empire during the Young Genius competition held by our Darkstone Empire's imperial family today will be able to obtain a Void Fuse fruit prepared for him by the empire's imperial family. Void Fuse fruit. Everyone present was moved when King Yong said this. Void Fuse fruit. Duan Lingtian's heart shook, and his gaze burned with extreme yearning. No matter if it was the Void Refining fruit or the Void Reserve fruit that Duan Lingtian had consumed before, or this Void Fuse fruit, they were all spirit fruits consumed by Void Prying stage martial artist. The medicinal strength of the Void Refining fruit and Void Reserve fruit were equal, and the medicinal strength of the Void Fuse fruit was the total of the two previous spirit fruits. Moreover, its medicinal strength wouldn't conflict with the medicinal strength of the two previous fruits. In other words, even if Duan Lingtian had consumed the Void Refining fruit and Void Reserve fruit previously, the condition of its medicinal strength reducing wouldn't occur after he consumed the Void Fuse fruit. A Void Fuse fruit is able to allow a martial artist that has just broken through to the 9th level of the Void Prying stage to break through to the Void Initiation stage in one go within a short period of time. Someone exclaimed out in surprise. Instantly, the atmosphere in the surroundings was lit ablaze. Void Fuse fruit. I'm determined to obtain it. HMPH. You're dreaming. This Void Fuse fruit is surely mine. I think both of you are dreaming. The Void Fuse fruit is surely mine. The crowd of young geniuses started arguing. Every single one of them was filled with confidence towards themselves. Void Fuse fruit. A bright light flickered in Duan Lingtian's eyes, and he had a resolute expression. With the medicinal strength of the Void Fuse fruit, it will even be possible for me to break through 2 levels in one go and step into the 9th level of the Void Prying stage once I consume it. In this way, then even if I'm unable to obtain the Ageless root before the martial competition of the Darken Dynasty and am unable to refine the Rebirth Pill, I'll similarly have the chance to break through to the Void Initiation stage. As long as I break through to the Void Initiation stage, I'll work together with the other 8 people and open up the Sword Monarch's treasure. Duan Lingtian's mood surged extremely. The Ageless root was too difficult to come by. He didn't dare completely place his hope on it. Now, the Void Fuse fruit would be another turning point for him. I wonder if there's a Void Initiation stage existence amongst the young geniuses present. If there is, then I'll surely not be the person's match. And even if that person obtains the Void Fuse fruit, it wouldn't have much use to the person. At that time, if I use a grade 4 spirit weapon to exchange for it, I presume he wouldn't refuse. If there's no existence at the Void Initiation stage martial artist, then I wonder if there's a 9th level Void Prying stage inscription master present. An existence like this is the most troublesome for me. The soul skill, 1000 illusions, would be useless against him, and he would probably not give up the Void Fuse fruit for a grade 4 spirit weapon. As Duan Lingtian finished thinking, he felt slightly worried, and when he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force swept out with intent to detect the cultivations of the young geniuses present. But, his spiritual force had only just stretched out when he noticed 3 spiritual forces that were even stronger than him sweeping over, and they alarmed him to the point he hurriedly withdrew his spiritual force. Spiritual force at the Void Initiation stage. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and then he looked up at the high platform. Looks like there are 3 inscription masters on the high platform. Earlier, when I used my spiritual force to scan King Yong, the reason they didn't react to it was probably because of King Yong's dignity. Their spiritual force appeared when I wanted to scan the cultivations of the young geniuses from the various powers just now. Duan Lingtian quickly guessed this. Of course, even if those 3 inscription masters noticed Duan Lingtian's spiritual force, they wouldn't know who exactly was the owner of the spiritual force. After all, Duan Lingtian had withdrawn his spiritual force at the first possible moment, whereas, because Duan Lingtian didn't pursue those 3 spiritual forces, he was also unable to discover who the owners of those 3 spiritual forces were. Looks like I can only proceed with caution. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Presently, if he used his spiritual force to scan the cultivations of the young geniuses present, then it was very likely that he would be obstructed by those 3 inscription masters. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force was currently far inferior to them. 578 Chapter 579, Young Genius Competition, begins. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that when faced with the temptation of the Void Fuse fruit, most of the young geniuses, including him, were filled with yearning. Only 2 people seemed to not mind in the slightest. Su Li, Long Yun. Both of them have masters from the foreign lands, perhaps they've already consumed a void fuse fruit. Duan Lingtian guessed. The effect of the void fuse fruit would decrease greatly when consumed the second time, and its benefit was extremely insignificant. Under his curiosity, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but ask Su Li via voice transmission. Su Li nodded when he heard Duan Lingtian and replied via voice transmission. Not long ago, Master granted me a void fuse fruit, and its medicinal strength hasn't been completely absorbed. So long as I completely absorb the void fuse fruit's medicinal strength, then it would be sufficient for me to break through to the void initiation stage. Void initiation stage. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he looked at Su Li with slight astonishment. Su Li, you comprehended sword concept? Su Li said that so long as he finished absorbing the spirit fruit's medicinal strength, he would be able to directly break through to the void initiation stage. These words were sufficient for Duan Lingtian to have many thoughts flash through his mind. Yes, Su Li nodded lightly, I just comprehended it 2 months ago. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. He comprehended sword concept 2 months ago. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Su Li's comprehension ability caused him to feel shock. Duan Lingtian recalled all those years ago when Su Li appeared before him as a sword cultivator. At that time, the red-clothed young man that stood out in the Iron Blood Army's genius camp had grown to such an extent now. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that even though Su Li's cultivation was pushed up to this level with various treasures from his master from the foreign lands, but Su Li's comprehension of concept was entirely obtained by relying on his own comprehension ability. Su Li's comprehension ability could be said to be shocking. Su Li was simply a sword cultivator that was born to the sword. Duan Lingtian, I'll try my best during the Young Genius competition this time. If I obtain the first, then I'll give you the void fuse fruit. Su Li's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears once more, and it caused Duan Lingtian's body to imperceptibly tremble. He was able to discern that Su Li has spoke this promise with sincerity, and warmth arose in his heart. Su Li, don't look down on me, you might not be a match for me now. Duan Lingtian smiled as he sent a voice transmission, and his tone was filled with confidence. I'll wait and see. Su Li's gaze lit up abruptly and he was filled with yearning. Right at this moment, King Yong, who stood on the high platform, spoke once again. Now, I'll give all of you 15 minutes to get ready. The Young Genius competition this time will begin after 15 minutes. 15 minutes. The group of young geniuses that were originally mentally tense heaved a sigh of relief when they heard King Yong. Some of the people started stretching their bodies. The young geniuses of the various powers and imperial kingdoms were ready to jump at each other's throats. Duan Lingtian, I'll defeat you today. A voice filled with confidence sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ear. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't turn around, yet he was still able to discern that this was Long Yun's voice. I anticipate it extremely. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently, and he seemed to not take Long Yun's words seriously. Tisk tisk, looks like it's just as revered Elder Wei said, your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom really doesn't have any talented people left. An extremely mocking voice sounded out by the ears of Duan Lingtian and the others. Duan Lingtian was the first to frown and look over. He saw a young man around the age of 35 walking over shoulder to shoulder with another 4 young men around the age of 30, and they revealed expressions of ridicule as they looked at Duan Lingtian's group. The person that spoke out in ridicule was precisely the young man around the age of 35. 2 little kids that I've never heard of have actually occupied 2 positions from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, 5 great young masters of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Looks like they're just AFC King joke. Another young man ridiculed. Expressions of ridicule arose on the faces of the other 3 young men as well. Right when Luo Zan, Chen Xiaoshuai, and Long Yun's expressions went grim. Idiots. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the 5 of them as he slowly spat out a word. Right at the earlier instant, Duan Lingtian received Kai Ming's voice transmission, and he found out of the identity of these 5 people. The 5 young geniuses of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom, whereas, the old fellow that was standing in sharp opposition with Kai Ming was precisely the revered elder of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom's imperial family and one of the 2 representatives of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom this time. That old fellow's name was Wei Kun. So, Duan Lingtian wasn't courteous in the slightest towards these 5 people that came to provoke them. You, what did you call us? The 5 young men of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom went gloomy. Haha, Luo Zhan started laughing loudly, and he spoke with a sonorous voice that was filled with arrogance and was without restraint. Is there something wrong with the ears of you idiots? I've heard since long ago that the Bajo Imperial Kingdom abounded with idiots. Now that I've met all of you, it really deserves its reputation. Chen Xiaoshuai ridiculed as well, and his words were extremely blunt. Obviously, Chen Xiaoshuai and the others had received Kai Ming's voice transmission reminder, and they knew of the identities of these people. Trash. Long Yun glanced at the 5 young men from the Bajo Imperial Kingdom with contempt, and his eyes were filled with disdain. At this moment, Long Yun stood on the same united front as Duan Lingtian's group. They represented the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. They shared both Wheel and Wo when facing outsiders. Idiot. Trash. The expressions of the 5 young men from Bajo Imperial Kingdom were livid, and their bodies even trembled from anger. What had they been humiliated like this by another? All of you are courting death. The young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom that was around 35 had a gloomy expression, and his eyes were filled with ruthlessness. I'll surely trample on all of you beneath my feet when the young genius competition begins. I'll let all of you know who's the true trash. All of you have infuriated me, you're dead. Another young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom licked his dry lips as he emitted awe-inspiring killing intent from his eyes. You 2 little kids, you haven't even grown hair yet you dare participate in the young genius competition of the Darkstone Empire. I'll properly teach the 2 of you a lesson today. Another young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom looked towards Duan Lingtian and Su Li with a gaze filled with ruthlessness. The 2 remaining young men from Bajo Imperial Kingdom both had killing intent leaping about within their eyes. We'll see. Luo Zhan sneered. Along with the departure of the 5 young men from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, the area where Duan Lingtian's group of 5 were had returned to calm. This was only a small incident, and it didn't even draw the attention of many people. Only the 4 representatives of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and Bajo Imperial Kingdom paid slight attention to this. 15 minutes quickly passed by. Now, a combat ringmaster should ascend onto each of the 9 combat rings, and the others may ascend the combat ring to issue a challenge. In the end, the 9 great combat ringmasters and the number 1 young genius of the empire that's able to defeat all the 9 great combat ringmasters will be decided on. King Yong stood up once more and his extremely sonorous voice sounded out. You're only able to utilize spirit weapons and no other external source of strength during the young genius competition today. King Yong continued. Other external sources of strength included inscriptions and any other strength that didn't belong to them. Duan Lingtian, where's little gold? Luo Zhan looked at Duan Lingtian's shoulder and asked curiously. In the past, he'd already become accustomed to a little gold mouse always standing on Duan Lingtian's shoulder. Earlier, he felt that something was lacking on Duan Lingtian, and after King Yong's reminder, he finally recalled the little gold mouse. I don't know where she is now, she got lost. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. Got lost? Luo Zhan and the others couldn't help but be stunned. How did she get lost? Chen Xiaoshuai asked. Although Su Li didn't ask, but he looked curiously at Duan Lingtian. It was the sandstorm. Duan Lingtian sighed. Sandstorm. Luo Zhan and the others were first stunned, then they seemed to have recalled something, and their expressions went pale. Duan Lingtian, you went to the Darken Dynasty's southern desert. Chen Xiaoshuai took a deep breath and asked. In the Darken Dynasty, only the southern desert of the Darken Dynasty had sandstorms. This was something that anyone who knew general knowledge would know. Luo Zhan and Su Li were no exception. You encountered a sandstorm, yet didn't die. Duan Lingtian, you're really lucky. Long Yun looked at Duan Lingtian with battle intent surging in his eyes. Looks like even the heavens want you to suffer defeat at my hands. Long Yun, you seem to be extremely confident of yourself now. Duan Lingtian glanced deeply at Long Yun. Long Yun raised his hand and had an expression filled with arrogance. Duan Lingtian, why did you head to the Darken Dynasty's southern desert? Su Li asked via voice transmission. His tone was filled with bewilderment. I originally intended to go look around in the Darken Dynasty, but I unexpectedly accidentally entered into the southern desert. Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission. He didn't speak the truth. After all, the rebirth pill was his secret. Perhaps, Su Li wouldn't covet his rebirth pill. But the temptation of the rebirth pill was too great. Even if it was Su Li's master that came from the foreign lands, he would probably be unable to refuse the temptation of the rebirth pill. So, Duan Lingtian would absolutely not reveal the rebirth pill. For the sake of protecting himself, and for the sake of protecting the people by his side. Su Li nodded with sudden understanding, and he didn't doubt Duan Lingtian. Meanwhile, there were already 9 young geniuses that had taken the lead to ascend to the 9 combat rings and had become the initial combat ringmasters of the various combat rings. Besides the 9 young geniuses that followed them up, the remaining young geniuses stood outside the combat rings and spectated. In next to no time, 9 fierce battles started. Numerous figures fluttered like the wind on the 9 combat rings, sword and saber moving back and forth, and they fought like a raging fire. 12 4th level void prying stage martial artists and 6 5th level void prying stage martial artists. Duan Lingtian's eyesight was sharp, and he discerned their cultivations by looking at the ancient horned dragon silhouettes and ancient mammoth silhouettes in the sky above the 18 people. In next to no time, the outcome of the battles on the 9 combat rites had been decided one after the other. 6 5th level void prying stage young geniuses accomplished their wish and obtained victory. On the other 3 combat rings, amongst the 3 4th level void prying stage martial artists, one had defeated his opponent by relying on the might of the spirit weapon in his hand, and the other 2 relied on their force that surpassed their opponent. Good, instantly, the streams of spectators outside the combat ring cheered. 579 Chapter 580, Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Sword Young Master. Bang, 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 numerous deafening sounds resounded out from the 9 combat rings. It was the numerous figures that either stood on the combat ring or floated in the air above that were fighting each other until a victor was decided. Occasionally, there would be people who weren't able to admit defeat in time and were killed. Every time this happened, the representative that the young genius who was killed belonged to would have extremely gloomy expressions. But they didn't dare do anything. The Darkstone Empire's young genius competition had a rule. Once a person ascends one of the 9 combat rings, they either had to leave the combat ring as a form of admitting defeat, or speak out that they admitted defeat. Otherwise, even if they died, they would have died for nothing. It's that person from the Bajo Imperial Kingdom. Suddenly, Chen Xiaoshuai's voice caused Duan Lingtian to return to his senses. Duan Lingtian followed Chen Xiaoshuai's gaze. One of the 5 young geniuses of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom had already ascended onto the combat ring now. His opponent was a 5th level void prying stage young genius that had comprehended half-step advanced force. Both of them had similar ages. You aren't a match for me. The young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom spoke indifferently with a voice as cold as ice. We'll only know after I try. His opponent naturally hated to see his arrogance, and had directly made a move. Whoosh! The figure of the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom fluttered like the wind, and his origin energy that skyrocketed flowed beneath his feet and strands of azure-colored energy suffused on his legs. Half-step advanced wind force. The strength of this Bajo Imperial Kingdom's young genius was on par with his opponent. But because of the advantage of wind force in terms of speed, his opponent was unable to follow his speed. Don't flee if you have the balls. His opponent's face went gloomy and shouted out with rage. As you wish. The young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom had only just finished speaking when he turned around and pounced towards his opponent. Swish! A swift 3-foot-long blade was filled with raging origin energy as it whistled out to fiercely stab towards his opponent. Clang! The sound of iron weapons colliding sounded out. The spirit sword in the hands of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom's young man easily blasted away the spirit saber in the hand of his opponent. Swish! Subsequently, the spirit sword in his hand entered into his opponent's chest and came out the other side. His opponent was killed by him. Ping! Instantly, on the high platform, an aged old man's body trembled, and his voice was extremely miserable. The gaze he shot at the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom was filled with killing intent. Sit down, a dignified voice sounded out, causing the old man to be unable to help but shake, and he sat back down obediently. The owner of the dignified voice was precisely King Yang. In next to no time, there was someone to drag away the dead young genius's corpse. Grade 5 Spirit Sword. Duan Lingtian had seen the battle earlier from the beginning until the end. The reason the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom was able to be victorious was because he relied on the Grade 5 Spirit Sword in his possession. His opponent only possessed a Grade 6 Spirit Weapon. After the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom killed his opponent and achieved victory, he looked at Duan Lingtian's group with a provocative gaze, and then he ridiculed with a loud voice. Trash from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, does any of you dare battle me? Trash from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. The words of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom's young man caused the gazes of most people present to become strange. Numerous burning gazes descended onto Duan Lingtian's group of 5. Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold, and then his figure moved slightly as he intended to ascend the combat ring. Slap! Unexpectedly, a hand had descended onto his shoulder before he could move out and had restrained him. Let me. The person that stopped him was precisely Chen Xiaoshuai. Whoosh! Chen Xiaoshuai's figure flashed out to descend onto the combat ring. Not bad, at least you have some courage. I was still thinking that all the members of your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom are chickens. The young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom looked at Chen Xiaoshuai with eyes filled with killing intent. But, since you've ascended the combat ring, then don't hope of leaving with your life. As soon as the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom finished speaking, the surroundings burst into an uproar. This young man wants to kill the young genius from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He attacked extremely ruthlessly and without holding back in the slightest earlier. This young genius from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will probably be struck with disaster. I don't think so. Since this young genius from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom dared to ascend to the combat ring, I presume he's extremely confident of himself. I think so too, the surrounding spectators whispered in discussion. Some of them looked favorably upon the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, and some of them looked favorably upon Chen Xiaoshuai. How's your strength amongst the 5 people from the Bajo Imperial Kingdom? Chen Xiaoshuai looked indifferently at the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom as he asked indifferently. HMPH. My strength can only be considered to be at the bottom amongst the 5 people from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, but it's more than enough to deal with you. The Bajo Imperial Kingdom's young genius grunted coldly and spoke in disdain. Really? Chen Xiaoshuai smiled extremely brilliantly. Remember on the path of hell, that the one who killed you was one of the 5 great young masters of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that you looked down upon, sword young master. Chen Xiaoshuai's words were practically spoken word by word. Whoosh! After he finished speaking, Chen Xiaoshuai moved, and he instantly approached the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom. In the sky above him, 7,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared. 5th level of the void prying stage. Many people present couldn't help but be stunned as they never expected that Chen Xiaoshuai was only a 5th level void prying stage martial artist. He's actually at the 5th level of the void prying stage as well. Many people broke out in cold sweat for Chen Xiaoshuai. This fellow is actually still acting weak. Duan Lingtian had a strange gaze. He'd seen through Chen Xiaoshuai's cultivation since long ago. Presently, Chen Xiaoshuai was already in existence at the 6th level of the void prying stage. When that young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom saw Chen Xiaoshuai flash over and reveal a strength at the 5th level of the void prying stage, the disdain in his eyes grew deeper. When he saw Chen Xiaoshuai arrive nearby him, he raised his hand and condensed a sword with his origin energy, and he didn't even utilize a spirit weapon. Since you want to seek death, then I'll let you die. The young man shouted out coldly, and the sword in his hand casually swung out. He even couldn't be bothered to use his full strength in this strike. He's only used the strength of 9,000 plus ancient mammoths. As far as he was concerned, a careless 5th level void prying stage martial artist that didn't even utilize a spirit sword utterly didn't require him to utilize his full strength. Kai Ming, this sword young master of your Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom is probably going to die at the hands of the young geniuses of my Bajo Imperial Kingdom today, ha ha ha. On the high platform, an arrogant voice transmission sounded out by Kai Ming's ears. Wei Kun, aren't you getting ahead of yourself? Kai Ming was reluctant to show weakness, and he sneered in reply via voice transmission. Practically at the instant the revered elder, Wei Kun, of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom was stunned by Kai Ming's reply. A tremendous change occurred in the situation on the combat ring. On the sword condensed from origin energy that was in the hands of Chen Xiaoshuai who approached the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, origin energy had suddenly skyrocketed. The 7,000 ancient mammoths in the sky instantly increased to 8,000. 6th level of the void prying stage. He was concealing his strength. At this instant, the same thought emerged in the minds of everyone. Wei Kun's face went grim, and then he consoled himself. So what if he possesses the strength of 8,000 ancient mammoths? He already doesn't have enough time to utilize a spirit weapon now. Unless he has comprehended advanced force, otherwise, he's dead. Swish! As with the spirit sword condensed from origin energy in Chen Xiaoshuai's hand flashed out, it transformed into a bolt of lightning that moved to intercept the spirit sword in the hands of the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom. Strands of peerlessly sharp aura started to leap about on the bolt of lightning on Chen Xiaoshuai's hand. Whoosh! Another 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared by the side of the 8,000 existing ancient mammoth silhouettes. The 10,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes converged into an ancient horned dragon silhouettes that coiled down with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. Advanced force. Instantly, many people shouted out in surprise from the surroundings of the combat ring. How can this be possible? Wei Kun had even left his seat as his face went gloomy. He was just consoling himself that it was probably impossible for this Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Sword Young Master to have comprehended advanced force. Yet in this instant, Sword Young Master had played an extremely great joke on him. He'd really exerted advanced force. Chen Xiaoshuai's sword strike that contained the strength of an ancient horned dragon whistled out and shook the spirit sword in the hands of the Bajo Imperial Kingdom's young man to dispersal, and at the instant that the young man's face went pale and intended to utilize an even stronger strength. Swish! The sword formed from origin energy in Chen Xiaoshuai's hand went straight into the young man's throat. Along with the origin energy dispersing, a savage bloody hole had appeared on the throat of the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, and fresh blood gushed out without end as if it was worth nothing. No, the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom held tightly onto his throat, and his figure trembled as he struggled to look towards Chen Xiaoshuai. After a short moment, fresh blood tainted his hands red. Bang! Finally, the young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom crashed onto the ground and was completely devoid of any signs of life. The scene before him was slightly unexpected to Duan Lingtian. Of course, he wasn't surprised that Chen Xiaoshuai was able to kill this young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom, whereas, he was surprised that Chen Xiaoshuai had killed him without utilizing a spirit sword. Carelessness caused him to die in an instant, but even if he wasn't careless, and even if he exerted his full strength, so long as Sword Young Master utilized his spirit sword, he would similarly be able to instantly kill the young man. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart that at the instant Chen Xiaoshuai ascended to the combat ring, the fate of this young man from Bajo Imperial Kingdom was sealed. 6th level of the Void Prying Stage. Advanced Sword Force. Grade 5 Spirit Sword. It was too easy for an existence like this to kill a martial artist that merely comprehended half-step advanced force and was only at the 5th level of the Void Prying Stage. I never expected that he'd comprehended advanced sword force. Duan Lingtian looked at Chen Xiaoshuai as he sighed in his heart. Although Hist used his spiritual force to detect Chen Xiaoshuai's cultivation since long ago, he knew nothing of Chen Xiaoshuai's comprehension of sword force. There's actually a person with such comprehension ability in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He looked to be a little over 30, it's shocking that he has comprehended advanced sword force. I've heard of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's 5 great young masters. This sword young master seems to only be ranked at the 4th. What, he's only ranked at the 4th? Then doesn't that mean there are still 3 people stronger than him? On the high platform, the representatives of the various powers and imperial kingdoms discussed animatedly. Amongst them were some imperial kingdom representatives that had heard of the 5 great young masters of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. The imperial kingdoms these representatives came from were all neighboring to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and they'd heard of the matters in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom.